Testing. Are we good? We know you can hear us out there. We're just testing for the live stream. Any luck, Chloe? No, we don't have audio. As you know, we're very committed to live streaming our meetings, so we're just trying to sort out this technical glitch before we start. See if we can sort it out. Okay, so this evening we have two meetings. Our first is our Committee of Adjustment, and then we transition to our council meeting. Ms. Preston is going to continue to troubleshoot our technical challenges. But I think I will take this opportunity to remind colleagues that we do have, I think, two public meetings this evening. Is that right, Ms. Wood? In regards to our applications. These are the, I think, shorter of the items on our agenda this evening. And again, we're looking at our Committee of Adjustment. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I will read our land acknowledgement, and that is that the municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation. So with that, I'll look for an approval of the minutes from our October 9th Committee of Adjustment meeting. Council colleagues, a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor O'Sullivan, thank you very much. Any questions or concerns in regards to our minutes from October 9th? Not seeing anything from council colleagues. I will call the vote. All in favor, raise your hands. Good. Our minutes carry. So now we're moving to our public hearing. Our first is for A1424 in regards to 206 Bridge Street South. I'll read the mandatory text for the purposes of a public meeting. This is that the Committee of Adjustment will now hold a public meeting to consider application number A1424 for Madison Mulder on the lands located at 206 Bridge Street South, Plan 11, Part Lot 10, geographic town of Kemptville, now the municipality of North Grenville, to reduce the rear yard setback and the exterior side yard setback to allow for proposed parking. This hearing is your opportunity to provide any feedback on this application. The committee welcomes questions and comments you may have. We encourage you to do so at this public hearing, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited if written or oral comments are not submitted. An appeal may be filed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the applicant, a specified person, or a public body. Ms. Debbie Wood, of course, is our Secretary Treasurer, and she will keep a record summary of this meeting. Any persons who wish to receive further notice of the committee's decision can certainly approach Debbie following this meeting. Are there people here for the public meeting in regards to 206 Bridge Street South? I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. Okay. Is the applicant here? Ms. Wood? Okay. So with that, we'll invite Mr. Mohammed Zahid to provide his report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To start with the property address, introducing the property in question, which is 206 Bridge Street South. It is in the urban serviced area positioned within a residential neighborhood. The applicant for the minor variance request is Madison Mulder. Can we go to the, yep, that's fine. The image shows the property location relative to nearby lots and streets. And can we go to the next slide? The applicant seeks a minor variance relief from the rear and exterior side yard setback requirements according to section 13.2 of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The property doesn't meet specific yard setback standards. The variance is needed to allow the proposed semi-detached dwelling to fit within the property's limitations. Next slide, please. When it comes to background information, the property spans 0.12 acres and it is presently a vacant land. Due to the exterior side yard not running parallel to the interior lot, there's a tighter area to build on, increasing the need for a variance. Next slide, please. In addition, it's located within a residential density R1 zone, and the official plan designation is residential within an urban serviced area. This zoning and designation apply directly to Madison Mulder's proposed development, guiding the criteria for minor variance compatibility. Next slide, please. This slide includes the site plan with the proposed semi-detached dwelling highlighted in red color. Next slide. When it comes to agency and public input, no comments were received from any agency or public during the report preparation phase. And next slide, which is going to be the last slide. Staff recommends approval. The proposal aligns with the official plan and the zoning bylaw and meets with minor variant requirements and represents good land use planning. Thank you. If anyone has any question, please let me know.
Colleagues, any questions? I'm confused as to 206 Bridge Street is, it's not clear to me where, is it in close proximity to other homes?
Yep. Yes, it is, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so the variance that is being sought here is to allow relief from the standard setback requirements, is that right?
Yes, that's true, Madam Mayor.
And does that impede on neighboring properties at all? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Can we see the site plan slide?
So the relief being sought here is from the setback to enable the proposed parking? Is that the rationale?
Madam Mayor, it does meet the interior side yard, which is on the downside of the site plan, but on the road side, that's the exterior side yard, and on the right-hand side of the image, that's the rear one. So it does meet the interior, but it does not meet the exterior one, which is closer to the roadside.
Great, thank you so much. That's so helpful. And then in terms of the proposed parking, there's no issue now with the proposed parking as it's presented on the slide?
No, there
Okay.
is no.
And there's a number of parking spots proposed. So we assume then this is a multi-residential building, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Because 5 of their parking, they are like listing on the downside. And the 6th one, it's there where the exterior side yard relief is needed.
And so it's a semi-detached, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
And it will accommodate how many residential units?
6?
6. So obviously the allocation is 1 parking lot per unit.
That's true.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much. Any other questions, colleagues? So you're really looking to accommodate that 6th parking spot, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's true,
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Great. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to planning. So it's a semi-detached unit, but how does it become 6 units? Even if there was 1 additional residential unit in each side, that would only be 4. How does it become 6? Is it 2 stories or?
Through your worship, that Councillor O'Sullivan. So this is a reflection of some of the recent changes that council passed with the housekeeping bylaw, whereby you can have a semi-detached dwelling, and within each half of the semi, you can have 2 accessory dwelling units. So we don't fully know the configuration. We understand it will very likely be 2 stories in height with a basement unit. So on each half, there'd be 3 and 3.
Okay, thank you. And this lot is already severed from the lot beside it because initially it was, they both went up for sale at the very same time with the same real estate agent, both the empty lot and the house beside it. So so that lot has already been severed some years ago, I gather?
Through your worship, yeah, this property as presented to us is its own lot, and we don't know the history specifically of when the lot was created, but it is its own lot.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, colleagues? Not seeing any. Certainly, I don't think we have the applicant here this evening. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to planning. So does this to become potentially six units, do they have capacity allocation for 6 units on this lot?
Through your worship, yes, they've submitted their application for capacity and received it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anything else, colleagues? All right. So I understand we do not have the applicant here, and there's no one wishing to speak to this application for or against. So if that's the case, then I'm going to close the public meeting, and we will now review the recommendation on the table, which is that council grant relief for the property to be located on 206 Bridge Street South, Town of Kemptville, Municipality of North Grenville, from the following sections of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012 to provide relief for rear yard setback of 3.1 meters from 6 meters according to section 13.2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012, and to provide relief for exterior side yard of 5.5 meters from 6 meters according to section 13.2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012. Because the request is minor, the intent of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw and official plan are being maintained, and as stated by our staff, the variances are within parameters for additions in the residential designation. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, colleagues, for 206 Bridge, please. Thank you, Councillor Strachian. Seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll ask for any final questions, comments. Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, please. Thank you. That carries. So with that, we'll move to our second public meeting, which is in regards to 2793 Rideau Glen Lane. The Committee of Adjustment will now hold a public hearing to consider application number A1524 for Jonathan Kelly on the lands located at 2793 Rideau Glen Lane, Part Lot 27, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Oxford on Rideau, now the Municipality of North Grenville, to reduce the setback from the normal high water mark to allow for a deck and front yard setback to allow for a dwelling with conditions. This hearing is an opportunity to provide any feedback on the application. We encourage you to do so at this public hearing, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited. If there are no written or oral comments, an appeal may be filed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the applicant, a specified person, or a public body. So we're going to pass this over to Mr. Mosher for an update on this file. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We can advance to the next one, please, Chloe. So as stated in the opening, there's 3 variances that are being requested. They're all relating to allowing redevelopment of the single-family dwelling at the subject property. They provide relief from the dwelling size, the setback from the normal high water mark, the size of the deck, which would be located on the property, its setback to the normal high water mark, and then as well, just a technical thing, the front yard is technically the water side, so that needs to be varied as well. So if we can go to the next slide. This is the subject property. It's 2793 Rideau Glen Lane. So it's transected by Rideau Glen Lane, which is a private road. It's located near to the Rideau Glen Golf Course. The Rideau River borders it to the north, the golf course to the south. It's one of the last homes on the lane itself, and we began discussions with the applicant in, I think it's 2022, where they decided that they'd like to approach our office as well as the Conservation Authority to determine if it's possible to demolish and rebuild their house. We could go to the next slide, please. So through lots of back and forth, we were able to meet with the applicants on site, and this is the concept that was ultimately advanced as part of this variance application. So what you can somewhat see is the location of the proposed dwelling and the proposed deck out the front. You'll note just below it, there's an existing woodshed, existing dwellings further on the other property to the west, existing dwellings located at the top to the east. And then on the south side of the road to the right, you see 2 existing sheds. Where the proposed dwelling is located, you can see that there's a slight outline. This shows the location of the current dwelling, which would be demolished to allow for this property to be redeveloped. When we're looking at these types of applications, we always ask a couple questions. One of the main questions is it possible to relocate the dwelling outside the floodplain? Unfortunately, for this property, that is not a realistic objective which can be achieved as the property is entirely within the floodplain, but it does have some development rates. So then the next question becomes, can there be an improvement? So there's a very modest increase in setback, where the dwelling itself will be pushed a little bit further back, but that's largely offset by the fact that the deck will now be out front. I think the bigger gain for this application is that there'll be flood-proofing standards that are put in place when the dwelling is constructed. Next slide, please. So again, it's fully within the 1 in 100-year floodplain, so it will require that permit from a conservation authority as well as a septic office. Next slide, please. We circulated this application in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time that this slide deck was prepared, we received an email of no comment from Bylaw Services, an email from the Building Division noting a building permit would be required, a letter of no objection from the Conservation Authority noting that a regulatory permit is required, an email of no comment from Public Works, and a letter of no objection from the Septic Office noting that a Part 10 and 11 review of the existing septic system would be required before a building permit could be issued. Next slide, please. So staff recommends supporting this application with some conditions. Conditions would relate to the fact that it's tied to the development concept that you saw in a few slides up. So development would be as is depicted there. The other thing is that the applicants are asking to go a little bit larger in the dwelling size, and this is permitted by both the Rideau Valley, our official plan, and our zoning bylaw. The property doesn't have what's called safe access. Safe access being, in the event of a flood, it's likely that there'd be more than a foot of water on the road. Where a property doesn't have safe access, it is allowed to have an increase of 215 square feet or 20%, whichever is less, and that is what the applicants are asking for. So the conditions would say, basically, you're maxed out in terms of your total size. It has to be consistent with the concept you've provided to us, and it has to be subject to something called site plan control, which is a contract that governs this, makes future owners aware of the fact that there's flood-proofing measures, they're capped out for space, and it has to be developed in that way. With all of those things, staff is comfortable to recommend that the variance be approved. It would be minor, it would meet the intent of our zoning bylaw and official plan, and it would represent good land use planning with flood-proof measures. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Any questions from council colleagues? Deputy Mayor? No, your mic is not working. Just one sec.
Is that it? There we go. I forgot to. Thank you for your help, clerk. I'm curious about some of the mitigation that they're adding to the property in terms of drainage. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Through your worship. So mitigation is largely going to be determined through the regulatory permit process from the Conservation Authority. But I can speak from experience that for the Conservation Authority to issue a permit, they will ask to see details on the foundation design. They will be looking to see that the elevation of the underside of footing or the floor is at least a foot above the regulatory flood elevation, that mechanical and heating, ventilation systems, electrical, other things like that are also located above that flood elevation. And those details are typically put into the Conservation Authority's permit as conditions of development. Those are the types of measures we normally see. From a planning perspective, there's not mitigation specified through this process. It is generally through the regulatory permit from the Conservation Authority that you see that.
I note from the site plan that there's a cross-section of what looks like tile drainage. What's that all about?
So any of the drainage matters would be something that, it's to alleviate or contain drainage on the property itself or direct drainage away from foundation or property elements. Again, and those designs would have to be approved by the Conservation Authority at the building permit stage.
Good. Anything else, colleagues? Nothing? Mr. Mosher, is this a fairly typical or atypical application in your estimation?
It's a good question, Your Worship. It's fairly common. The Committee of Adjustment has seen, I think, 2 other floodplain reconstruction applications this calendar year. So the types of conditions are standard, the amount of square footage increase is standard, the requirement for CA permit is standard. So it's fairly in keeping with those others.
Excellent. Well, it's good that we can balance both the need for reconstruction here, the desire with some of the, I guess, limitations given the proximity to water. So council colleagues, if there's nothing else, is the applicant in the room? Oh, hello. Thank you. Welcome. Is there anything you wish to add at this stage? No, you're good. All right. And I should ask, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the application? Not seeing anyone, so just the applicant. Okay, so if the applicant is declining an opportunity to speak and there's no persons here for the public meeting, then I'm going to close the public meeting. And I'll go back to council colleagues for consideration of the following recommendations. And that is that the Committee of Adjustment grant relief for the property located at 2793 Rideau Glen Lane, Part Lot 27, Concession 1, former Township of Oxford on Rideau, now the Municipality of North Grenville, from the following sections of Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012. To provide relief from Section 6.25A of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw to allow construction of a 1,515 square foot dwelling at a setback of 13.8 meters. Only for the projecting deck, the dwelling is set back further as shown in the submitted site plan from the normal high water mark of the Rideau River at its closest point. To provide relief from Section 6.25A of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw to allow the construction of a 440 square foot attached deck at a setback of 13.8 meters from the normal high water mark of the Rideau River, and to provide relief from the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw to allow a reduced front yard setback of 13.8 meters with the following conditions: that the development be carried out as detailed in the submitted site plan, completed by Collard Associates and dated September 6, 2024, that the development be subject to a minor site plan control agreement, and that the owner and future owners understand that future additional living space, accessory structures, or other buildings and structures would not be able to be supported based upon current policies. With all that said, colleagues, because the request is minor, the intent of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw and official plan are being maintained, and the variances are within the parameters for reconstruction in the floodplain hazards designation. That was a mouthful. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so I don't know if I need to read it every time, but obviously for the purposes of transparency, we try to ensure that the recommendation is considered in a comprehensive way. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, colleagues, for this? Thank you. Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Any remaining questions or concerns? I'm not seeing any. All right, I'll call the question, please. All in favor? Thank you. And that carries. Thank you, Mr. Mosher, for your work on this file. Thank you to the applicants for being here. Best of luck. Hope it's a smooth process. Okay. So with that, Ms. Wood, I think we are concluding our public hearings for this meeting, and we're looking for an adjournment. Is that right? Okay. So then we will look to this side of the house. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Strachian, 7:05 p.m. For adjournment of Committee of Adjustment. I'll call the question. All in favor, colleagues? All right. Great. So we'll just need a minute to transition from Committee of Adjustment to Council. Thank you. Okay, we're going to reconvene, and I'm now have the pleasure to welcome you all here on Wednesday, November 13th at 7:08 p.m. to our council meeting. I will start by calling our meeting to order, and I'll invite a council colleague to read our land acknowledgement. Who would like to do that today? Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you so much. So before we move to approval of the agenda, just a few notes that staff have asked me to pass along, and I'm sure council would endorse these. We just wanted to express our appreciation for what has been another memorable Remembrance Day ceremony. There was actually a series of events in the lead up to Remembrance Day. So of course, we want to recognize the leadership of our local Legion Branch 212. In addition to what they usually undertake, we had an incredibly well-attended parade, choral performance, and it was capped off with a special flyover by two RCAF CF-147F Chinook helicopters. So we do want to highlight the contributions of the Poppy campaign organizers in particular, specifically Bruce Harrison and Kemptville Legion President Jay Tusaw, for again working so hard. And we saw the Legion organizers after the Remembrance Day ceremony on Monday, and they really have gone above and beyond. And I hope they get some rest for undertaking a series of events to mark Remembrance Day. In addition, we just wanted to remind you that bulky item collection is this week, so it's your last chance before winter is upon us to dispose of things such as furniture, mattresses, if you wish for them to be picked up curbside. Of course, you just need a bulky item bag tag. As well, of course, it's very exciting to see that we have the Santa Claus Parade, which is being led by the Rotary Club this year in partnership with the municipality. It starts at 4:30. The parade theme this year is the magic of Christmas. And we know how well received this parade has been in recent years with so many families and young children coming out. So we hope you take the opportunity to enjoy the Santa Claus Parade. We also have a number of Christmas and holiday related events this weekend at Kemptville Campus as the annual Christmas on Campus Wonderful Art Show. The organizers invite you to enjoy and immerse yourself in the amazing work of the Arts Guild. And of course, continue your holiday shopping. We had a wonderful Jack Frost farmers market event on Sunday with, I think, almost 70 vendors. It was really action-packed. So I know the spirit of the holidays is no doubt upon us. And then finally, I wanted to highlight that the North Grenville Community Theater's Fall Winter Play is Our Town by Thornton Wilder. It's opening on November 21st, and it's being presented here in the Urbandale Arts Center. It's described as an enduring classic that portrays the essence of small town life. Tickets are limited, so if you're someone who enjoys local theater, this one is certainly not to be missed. So with all that, thank you for your indulgence, colleagues. We're going to look to approve the agenda for November 13th. Colleagues, can I please have a mover and a seconder? Ms. Preston.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, I would advise council that a deputation came in with electronically through the clerk's inbox, and it is in relation to an item on the agenda. It is item K.1.2, and it would be read at the same time that the report is read through you, if that is acceptable. It was submitted in accordance with our protocol.
And with that, it effectively amends the agenda to acknowledge the deputation, or we're just introducing it as something to be included? Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. So with that, approval of the agenda, colleagues, any concerns or questions, council? Not seeing any. Looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda then. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Strachan, thank you very much. And I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Excellent. Thank you. Going to closed sessions. We have none this evening. Disclosures of interest. This is in regards to any perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from items on the agenda this evening. Any declarations? Seeing none, I'll move on. And next we have two. We have a presentation by the Ferguson Tree Nursery employees, and then we'll hear from Dillon Consulting in regards to our official plan consultation findings. So we'll invite representatives from the Ferguson Tree Nursery employees to come on down. Thank you. Yes, so we'll just need you for the record and for the live stream to turn on that mic. And unfortunately, you will need to get, unfortunately or fortunately, depending, you'll just have to get a little bit closer to the mic. So I know that a number of you are standing, but if you could speak into the mic, that'll just ensure that you're heard, particularly for the live stream. So thank you so much. And I know is it 3 of you speaking this evening or some more? Okay, great. So we have Chris, Brady, and Stephanie, is that right? Or do you have a different order? You can go in whatever order you wish. Okay, welcome.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Osterhoff. I am the grower of the container stock, or also known as greenhouse plugs, at Ferguson Tree Nursery. I have been employed and a member of the Ferguson Tree Nursery team since March of 2017. I started at the nursery as a new homeowner, newly married, to then starting and completing my beautiful young family. I have been here through a lot of uncertainties and struggles, from the government stopping the 50 million tree program, the realization of the water issues in the greenhouse, COVID, staffing difficulties, and management changes, and so many more. But I have also been here through so many great changes, including employees starting to get paid under livable wages, or at livable wages, the start of the 2 billion tree program, the morale of the nursery being at an all-time high, and this fantastic new management team. And I could go on. I know I can speak for all of the staff and say that Ferguson Tree Nursery is so much more than a nursery. The native trees, shrubs, and perennials that we grow here make a huge impact on the environment, helping with air quality, flood control, replanting after fires or tornadoes, attracting pollinators, and so many more. We all truly know and fully believe how important this financing is to Ferguson Tree Nursery. This financing will allow all of us to show the true potential of FTN, allow this place to thrive instead of just trying to survive by putting out quote unquote fires, trying to get to the next job. Let us show the community how great Ferguson Tree Nursery and Ferguson Forest Corporation can be. Thank you.
Thank you. And just say your full name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Christopher MacDonald, a Kemptville resident and Ferguson employee. 4 years ago, I began my employment at Ferguson Forest Center as the official grounds and trails maintenance person. They say years worked at Ferguson are like dog years, but the only days I feel like I'm 28 years older are the days that I worry about the future of Ferguson. In my role as groundskeeper, I cut the grass on the entire property many times and cleared fallen trees from all the trails. I also worked in the fields alongside the piece workers. I'm not a soil expert, but if I was to guess, I would say its fields are mostly sand mixed with equal parts sweat from the toil of local workers over many decades. Today, I am the nursery seed technician, where I organize the collection of the seeds of self-replicating biological machines, also known as trees. These trees are destined to fight climate change across Ontario for decades to come, even as they shelter wildlife and perhaps even heal the souls of the humans who spend time among them. An example of this was the 58,000 viable red oak acorns that were collected, carefully sorted from the non-viable ones, and planted at just the right depth and spacing by Ferguson's dedicated field crews, so they can emerge like magic as seedlings next spring. These are only a small fraction of the seeds that have been collected and sown this season at Ferguson. I must say that initially I resolved to petition the council to support Ferguson Tree Nursery solely as an end in itself and for the continuation of our jobs. However, I found I cannot separate the nursery from the multiple benefits it provides, such as providing space and logistical support for local charitable events, providing trees for the fight against climate change, and helping to maintain an exceptional outdoor recreation area in Kemptville. We hope future generations of Ferguson employees have the chance to appreciate our contribution to the Ferguson saga, just as we appreciate what our predecessors built. For truly, we stand on the shoulders of giants. As they say, in uncertain times, change is the only certainty. Moving forward as the stewards of this important intergenerational project, Ferguson Tree Nursery employees are committed to adapting to and overcoming all challenges. Regardless of the outcome of this process, I know the staff at Ferguson Tree Nursery remain in gratitude for the ongoing relationship of generosity and reciprocity between Ferguson and North Grenville, which has allowed us the privilege of working in an industry that we are so passionate about. All the while feeling the sense of purpose that comes with giving back to the local community and fighting climate change with every seedling we produce. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brady,
Yes,
full name?
Brady Scout.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm the grower who manages the field production at Ferguson Tree Nursery. Ferguson's is everything to me, and I know I'm speaking for the whole team when I say that. To be able to grow future forests it's an almost indescribable feeling. Every day I come to work, I know that I'm part of an organization that is directly improving the ecosystems of the beautiful community I'm very proud to be a part of. These tiny little trees will one day grow up to become massive giants, the forests of our future. So a little bit about me, I grew up on one of the largest dairy and cash crop farms in Eastern Ontario. I left that family farm, a decision many people thought foolish, to work at a struggling not-for-profit tree farm. I turned my back on an operation that would have provided for my family for generations. I chose Ferguson's, and I will choose Ferguson's until it is no longer an option. As the field grower, I get to experience the public more often than some of my colleagues. I see them walking through the nursery, enjoying the open space. It always puts a smile on my face when I see them point into the field and admire the trees. My favorite comments usually come from the school kids walking in groups. Wow, look at all those baby trees. They're so cute. The tree nerd in me is just fighting to get off the tractor and run over to them just to explain everything there is to know about Quercus rubra, the red oak, which sustains the most wildlife out of all the trees in our forests. I'm really excited about the future of Ferguson's. I'm excited for its place at the heart of Kemptville. I'm excited to be able to share my passion with this rapidly growing community. With your help, I know that we can create a future where the Ferguson Tree Nursery is an epicenter for forest innovation, education, and green living, right in the heart of Kemptville. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening?
No, that's it for us.
Okay.
Is there any questions or?
Any questions, colleagues, at this time? No, we really appreciate you being here. These were beautifully articulated statements. So thanks for coming and sharing what it means to you to work at Ferguson. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, great. Colleagues, with that, the clerk has asked that we formally receive the delegation presentation from the Ferguson Tree Nursery employees for information purposes. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Excellent. And with that, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Good, thanks. That carries. Well, thank you again for coming and speaking with such conviction. All right, so with that, we are going to go to Dillon Consulting. Megan, ready? Megan, I almost didn't recognize you. I think it's because you don't have your glasses, the trademark glasses. Okay, so Megan is here to present the pre-official plan update and share some insights through the extensive engagement with the community. So welcome, Megan. We're glad you're here in person. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Megan Reddy on behalf of Dillon Consulting Limited, and I'm here this evening to discuss, as mentioned, the pre-official plan update consultation and the insights we gathered from your community throughout the consultation from this summer leading into the early fall. Next slide, please. So for background and context, the purpose of this project was to invite community members to meaningfully contribute to the development of the new official plan. By providing this early feedback on the community's vision for North Grenville, the official plan update can be guided from its initiation by this shared vision. North Grenville's current official plan, adopted in 2018, is now out of date, and the new official plan horizon.
I think your mic is. We just want to be sure that you're heard on the live stream. Thanks. I think we're good to go. Almost there. Oh, I'm going to try another one. Okay. It's good we have an abundance this evening. Thank you. There's just a lot of static. Just try again, Megan, to keep talking.
North Grenville's current official plan, adopted in 2018.
No.
Still staticky.
No. We're so sorry. We'll not take away from your time. Nope.
Test.
Test.
Testing, testing. Perfect. All right.
Okay, so Megan's we're just gonna all orient to the left. Okay, go ahead, Megan. So
Okay.
sorry.
All right, so I'll start from the top of this slide. So North Grenville's current official plan was adopted in 2018 and is now out of date. So the new official plan will have a planning horizon of the year 2051 and will align with recent provincial planning updates and requirements. This consultation project gathered public opinion on planning matters and community core concerns to guide the development of this new official plan update. I'd like to note that while some answers received through this consultation project may not be directly related to land use planning, they have been identified in the What We Heard summary as they provide valuable insight into community-identified issues and opportunities that municipal staff and our local leaders can continue to work to meet as other documents, plans, and strategies are also updated. As directed by this council, our consultation process focused on 3 key themes: living, working, and playing in North Grenville. These themes were central to our discussions and helped categorize the feedback received from the community. Throughout the program, we offered a variety of consultation and engagement options to ensure broad participation. These included both asynchronous and synchronous methods. Asynchronous methods were the project website, the online survey questionnaire, and the online map. These options were all provided virtually to be accessed at respondents' convenience. Synchronous options included community pop-ups, advisory committee roundtables, a staff workshop, council interviews, community open houses, and community roundtables. Some synchronous options were provided virtually, while others were hosted in person. Our consultation timeline began with the project kickoff in July of 2024 and included the various engagement activities throughout the summer and into early fall. The project website, online survey questionnaire, and online map were available throughout the lifetime of the project from July to October 2024. We're now at the final point of the reporting stage at the end of the project timeline, and I'd like to take us through some of those activities that have brought us to this point to provide context for those final What We Heard themes. The online survey questionnaire ran from July 19th to October 12th with a total of 372 respondents. Respondents envisioned a 2051 North Grenville with more recreation opportunities, retention of its small town charm, preserved green spaces, and necessary services and infrastructure to support new growth. The survey was advertised on the project website, on social media, on the municipality's website's landing page, and on postcards and pamphlets distributed at the community pop-ups and handed out at key locations such as the youth center and the library. The online map was also available from July 19th to October 12th, and participants could place pins in 4 categories: something you love, something to be improved, a new idea, and feedback. Comments were received from the public, advisory committees, and municipal staff, and nearly 20 pins were dropped across these 4 themes. The online map was advertised in a similar method to the online survey and was hosted on the same Engage tab of the project website. We also held 3 virtual community roundtables focusing on different aspects of life in North Grenville. Roundtable number 1, Living in North Grenville, was held on September 16th. Roundtable number 2, Working, was held on September 25th. Roundtable number 3, Playing in North Grenville, was held on September 26th. Approximately 15 community members from various industries and experiences attended these roundtables to provide their feedback. The roundtables were hosted on Zoom and used the Mural platform to record comments, ideas, and policy points of interest from attendees. Each roundtable asked questions to the attendees and provided a period for facilitated discussion and debate to share their ideas and discuss. We also hosted 2 in-person community open houses. The first open house was held on Wednesday, September 18th at Maplewood Community Hall, and the second open house was held on Tuesday, October 8th at the North Grenville Municipal Center right here in this very room. Approximately 30 attendees participated in these events, and the open houses were styled as drop-in, drop-out events where guests could mark up boards to express their long-term planning goals for North Grenville and indicate on maps areas where they envisioned growth, preservation, and enhancements, while having an opportunity to speak to project team members and ask questions related to the official plan process. In addition to the previously mentioned activities, we also conducted the community pop-ups at Kemptville Live and Kemptville Farmers Market, facilitated 7 advisory committee roundtables using the Mural tool, hosted a staff workshop using Mentimeter and Mural, and hosted council interviews via web call. Other comments were received through emails and provided information from local individuals and organizations such as Sustainable North Grenville. I'd now like to shift us into the findings of the consultation process. Starting with Living in North Grenville, we heard that the new official plan should prioritize housing affordability and diversity. While we heard concerns about the rate of development, the location of construction, and aesthetic styles of new housing, above all of these, we heard that housing affordability is a major concern of residents and that a greater variety of housing typologies is needed to meet the needs of current and future residents across that housing continuum. We heard that quality of life and community cohesion must be centered in future housing and development plans. A holistic consideration of access to services and transportation, local recreation options, green space, and alignment with existing development patterns should guide the approvals of new housing starts. And finally, we heard that infrastructure and connectivity should be requirements for consideration in future planning applications. Similar to our second theme, active transportation, road capacity, water, sewage, hydro, and internet connections should guide new development, and new developments should be contributing to improving these key services for new and future residents alike. Under working in North Grenville, we learned that the new official plan policies should support local and small businesses, particularly home occupations, incubator spaces for growing local businesses, and on-farm diversified uses should have policy support and appropriate land designations to support these. Economic development priorities must be identified and align with new policies in the official plan. Economic development strategy should be recognized and supported throughout the new official plan policies, and the official plan should be updated to reflect current market needs and emerging industries to position North Grenville as a local leader in economic opportunities, such as green and clean technologies, to center itself as an attractive location for businesses compared to Ottawa and surrounding communities. And finally, we heard that barriers to the agricultural economy should be considered and removed where possible. Respondents across all platforms indicated a massive amount of support for the local agricultural industry and provided ideas for new support, such as drying facilities and abattoir, or help farmers sever land. The new official plan policies should consider the economic and land needs of farmers to ensure viability of the agri-food business within the local context. During our Playing in North Grenville consultations, we identified a severe need for indoor and winter recreation options. Limitations to these recreation options are forcing residents to leave the community to meet their needs. In order to recapture these local dollars, sports leagues, and social groups, the new official plan can consider how land use planning can attract and locate these kinds of spaces within North Grenville and explore partnership opportunities. We heard that the existing need for updated recreation spaces and infrastructure will only be exacerbated by continuing growth. There's already a lack of available space and time in dedicated sports facilities for activities like pickleball, basketball, and swimming. Without increased capacity, growth in North Grenville will place additional strain on these resources. Developers in the municipality should consider options to partner to provide recreational spaces as part of new developments. And additionally, recreation affordability is a major barrier to residents. Both the cost of participation and the cost to travel to recreation opportunities prevent residents from fully engaging, and the new official plan policies should consider how to locally provide this variety of options or consider cost-sharing opportunities to reduce financial strain on residents. To recap, our consultation process focused on the key themes of living, working, and playing to guide the discussions and categorize the feedback. While we did hear feedback outside of these three themes, and they are captured in the What We Heard summary, we've tried to classify them as closely as possible in order to help guide the new official plan process. The new official plan will incorporate these ideas through its update process, and I'm sure a version will be presented to the public in its draft format once that project itself is initiated. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone in attendance this evening and everyone online for their attention and participation in the process. We very much appreciate your commitment to the development of the new official plan and all the ideas and concerns shared with the project team. Your feedback is invaluable as we move forward in creating a plan that reflects the needs and aspirations of your community. I believe we now have a period for questions.
Thank you, Megan. Certainly, it was obvious through the many conversations Council was in addition to the conversations that you were in, that there was lots of feedback shared. So it's wonderful to see the quality of the reflections and feedback provided by a diverse range of residents. So I'll just go to Council colleagues for any questions in regards to the feedback or the reports provided by Megan. Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, Megan, for your report. I had the pleasure of sitting in on many of the engagements. There was a lot of good input from a lot of the public and a lot of good asks. What my question is in your experience doing similar to this in a community such as this size, did you feel that the uptake from the surveys, the numbers were good, or do you typically see more engagement in surveys? do you see more engagement from the public also participating in these?
Through your worship to Councillor Wilson, I'll note that the survey did have a great amount of uptake. For reference, the City of Kingston completed their 2025 budget survey and received only 500 and I think it was 17 responses to that in a much larger community. So proportionally, this is a very great amount. This is one of the largest surveys that I have conducted with my team as well. And to answer the second part of your question with regards to community turnout, this was a high percentage of turnout. It exceeded expectations, which is what we want to see with regards to engagement and consultation. We had a range of community members, representatives from local volunteer organizations and societies, recreation groups, and members even from the Leeds Grenville Health Unit come to participate in it. So we feel like we had very diverse representation of various interests, experiences, backgrounds, and stakeholder interests for the new official plan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Okay, not seeing any. I'll put myself on the list. So certainly, I think I was in many of the sessions where certainly a concern about recreational spaces, particularly indoor recreational space, was highlighted as a key barrier. I note that in the survey, when people were asked about what kind of indoor recreational space they wish to see, overwhelmingly, it was an indoor aquatic facility that scored the highest percentage, right, of requests, I guess, for that additional space. And then it was followed by other indoor recreational space, like court space, for indoor court sports, if I'm not mistaken. Then there was one other that I just lost track of here. So interesting. Do we prompt individuals in terms of identifying indoor recreational space that they would like to see, or were they responding to a multiple choice survey, or were they writing in what they felt was most urgently required in the community?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the survey provided a combination of that. There was both multiple choice options to respond to and open question forms. When providing the summary of results, we synthesized all of those to consider them equally, acknowledging that while we may have had some multiple choice options, we couldn't provide a comprehensive list of several hundred that might have come out in the survey. And so we tabulated them based off of the number of responses across multiple questions.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else, colleagues? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello? Is it? Okay. It's Christmas tree lights here. Thank you, Megan. That's great. This report is very comprehensive, and I'm sure it gives staff a lot of ammunition to craft an official plan. And I understand that once we have a draft, there'll be another consultation with the public, or allowing them some feedback. I was gratified to see the support and recognition of the agricultural sector. And I know this leads to land use policies, et cetera, but I imagine there's other policies besides land use that the OP would point to. And I'm just wondering how that interest and recognition of the agriculture sector gets translated into like actionable items. And this might be a question for Director Martin. I did want to say we're very grateful for the consultation, the pre-consultation that's taken place. So, Director Martin, we've seen the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee talk about things like CIP. How would this interest from the general public be translated through the official plan into some actionable items?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor. So the feedback that we received will help guide us in the types of policies that we will develop. Maybe a little more detailed policy that might support kind of more like industry specific uses, or be provide more recognition around those on-farm diversified uses. We do currently have policies within our current official plan that support community improvement plans. So we would ensure that those would be carried through and maybe be a little more fulsome in the type of programs that we might want to see from a policy perspective carried through into that community improvement plan type of program. So from a staff perspective, when we move forward with the development of the new official plan, we'll be able to take that level of feedback and provide a little more definition than kind of just the current policy, which is kind of just more overarching to say this is how we want to help and support those industries while not being too prescriptive to provide that flexibility for business to thrive.
Just to follow up to, through you, Your Worship, to the Director of Planning, is the secondary plan for downtown still on the table? And when do you anticipate that starting?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, the staff's opinion on that is that let's do the official plan first, and then subsequently we would come forward with a secondary plan once the new official plan is adopted. So we can still create policies within the official plan that speak to the downtown, but once that process is completed, I think it would be then appropriate to move towards a secondary plan for the downtown, creating its own separate process and not necessarily lumped into the overall official plan process.
Other questions, colleagues? Maybe just a second reflection. It certainly seems when you read through the feedback that you received, Megan, you and your colleagues, that there is this anxiety that perhaps North Grenville isn't ready or doesn't have the infrastructure required to accommodate the growth that we're seeing. Of course, North Grenville, as we know, has been growing for a long time, but certainly that growth was accelerated during the pandemic. So I recognize that there is an anxiety, if you will, or concerns, legitimately so, about how do we respond to all of that growth. From your perspective, having worked with other municipalities, what's your sense of how we can give people confidence? I know that you've gotten to know our planning staff. Among others, we have a great confidence that our staff work diligently to ensure that the infrastructure is there and is evolving to meet the needs of the community. But I sort of noticed, I think, in the report, a bit of a gap between what people express as a concern about not being ready. While that's certainly important to hear, we also know that a lot of the infrastructure is in place or is evolving. So do you see that perhaps there's a communication challenge for ourselves as a municipality in terms of how to articulate that the community is certainly ready, or the municipality is ready in certain respects? I do accept that I think the pressures on our recreational infrastructure and some of our active transportation networks is quite real. I think that absolutely it was wonderful to see reflected back to us that I think there is a need to make particular investments in those areas, because those are really about quality of life. Additionally, when we talk about diversity of housing options, knowing that there is very limited multi-residential in North Grenville, and there's quite a limited amount of affordable housing, is certainly something that, as many of us know, we've been working on for quite some time, but it does, unfortunately, it takes often many years for some of the efforts to materialize. But I guess to bring it back to my question, are you familiar with municipalities that have taken on the challenge of sort of better communicating some of that planning for our infrastructure needs and some of the already work underway? Have you been inspired by how other communities may have communicated some of those plans and some of that intention to ensure that, we're ready, if you will?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. I think first I'd like to note that a concerned community is an aware community. So it's also very important to note that while we're hearing these concerns, it means that residents of North Grenville are keeping an eye on what's happening around them. And while change may be concerning, it's oftentimes a sense of discomfort from how things have been in the past. So while we're not necessarily scared of the future, we need to understand how we're getting there, how it's being paid for, and what those steps look like in between from A to B. I think with the official plan project, there's certainly going to be an opportunity for education. What we've seen in some other communities, such as through the South Frontenac official plan update, was the tool of using policy brochures, not just to advertise what is within the scope of the official plan, but also to help communicate to the public what is within the role of the municipality, what's within the role of the province, and what's within the role of the federal government as well, to kind of help classify the hierarchy of responsibilities. And then also using that as an opportunity when it comes to municipally related infrastructure to use those policy brochures as a way to kind of advertise what the municipality has done, what's been updated, what you can expect, and then also provide a quick update on expected timelines for completion of any municipal undertakings on projects. So I do believe that there's a way to kind of help with some of the communication gap. I think typically the fear stems from a communication gap, where you might be receiving bits and pieces of information, whether from social media or only having parts of answers to planning questions shared as clips. But I think that there's certainly a way to kind of help abate these fears within North Grenville as the project moves into its next stage, something for consideration within that scope of work. And I do think moving forward as well, continuing the open process of inviting the public live streaming to make sure that when minor variances or official plan or zoning bylaw amendments are heard, that folks have the opportunity to come in and provide their comments and ask those questions about infrastructure, servicing, and capacity will help encourage the community to learn more about where there might be areas of tension and where there might be areas of opportunity. I hope that answers the question.
And if I might, just a quick follow-up, would you see that sort of additional effort as we grow? Would you see the sort of maybe amplified or accelerated communication to come prior to solidifying our official plan, or would you see it as more of an ongoing effort that could both precede and follow the confirmation of a new official plan?
Thank you, Your Worship. I see it as both. I think some things are within scope of official plan policies and some things are not. So while the process can certainly be started and the official plan project can be used as a runway to kind of test those methods of communication, lessons learned can be applied to updates of other plans, documents, and strategies as well. Any sort of feedback that's well received from the community for how they like to receive those communications can also be communicated. I know, for example, through this What We Heard summary, the online survey did have uptake, and it was appreciated that it could be completed at the time and place of respondents' choosing. So even considering the option for more online opportunities for that education across updates.
And I know, council colleagues, I think we may see an online survey in anticipation of our budget process for 2025, which will give residents another opportunity to sort of share in a bit of a quick format what they see as budget priorities, because sometimes it is tough for people to come out to in-person events. So appreciate that you offered a bit of a hybrid approach when it came to engagement with our community. I've often said official plans sound very official and sometimes maybe not that captivating. So to try to get people excited about or thinking about fundamentally what underlies an official plan, which I think from our perspective as a council is really about quality of life, what keeps people here, what gets people excited about living in our community, working in our community. Those questions are so fundamental to how we experience the day-to-day. It's really key that we find ways to continue the conversation with our community, because while an official plan may sound very bureaucratic, at its core, it, I think, is about defining and forging ways for a high quality of life in North Grenville. Certainly, I think what your summary suggested is people are very attached to a high quality of life here, and they can see where, in some cases, because of growth or because of how we're evolving, they don't want that quality of life to erode, or they see opportunities to actually make investments in new kinds of housing or recreational infrastructure that will improve the quality of life for themselves and their families. So I'll just look to council colleagues for anything else. Seeing nothing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you spent a lot of evenings and in North Grenville and lots of time connecting with residents and our staff. And thank you to Amy, who was present at many of those same discussions, and Phil, among others, and our clerk's office, who all came together to do our best to hear from residents and business leaders. So thank you very much. Okay, so colleagues, so if we can just consider the following recommendation, and that is that council receive the presentation and report from Dillon Consulting entitled Pre-Official Plan Update Consultations, what we heard for information purposes only. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Okay, and I will call the question on that. All in favor, please. All right. Colleagues, do you want to take a quick 5 minutes or carry on? Quick 5 minutes? Okay. We'll take a little break before we continue.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're gonna try to reconvene. Took a slightly longer break than expected. So appreciate that we colleagues got through 2 substantial delegations. So we're now going to move on to section I, which is our consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine, are no longer required for the discussion, and are enacted in one motion. The exception to this rule is that a member may request that one of our items be pulled for discussion and voted on separately. So council colleagues, is there anything you wish to pull? Looking at you. I would like to pull part lot control extension, the Creek subdivision. So with that, I don't see any other proposed changes, and so we'll move towards the adoption of the consent agenda as amended. Mover seconder, please. Councilor Sullivan, Deputy Mayor, thank you. And I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. So with that, the minutes of the previous meeting have been adopted under consent, development charges bylaw, consent. So we'll move on then to reports from the CAO. And first we have the sale of surplus land on Lindsay Road allowance. And I believe, Ms. Preston, are you taking this one? Okay, great. We'll invite you when you're ready to make a presentation.
Apologies.
No worries.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council. Council will recall back in March that the road allowance between the 15th and 16th lot in the 6th concession was brought forward for consideration to be declared surplus to the needs of the municipality. The municipality had received a request from an abutting landowner to purchase the land and utilize it for ecological purposes in connection with an initiative through the RVCA. At that time, staff analyzed the land and proceeded with a recommendation to declare the land surplus. At that time, council further directed that staff undertake the process under the disposition of land bylaw to proceed with sale. In accordance with the bylaw, road allowances are treated slightly differently than other pieces of property in the municipality in that the first right of option to purchase is provided to the abutting landowners if desired. In this case, the municipality reached out to the alternate abutting landowner and received no response with regards to an intention to purchase. As such, we have been in conversation with the solicitor representing the original purchaser. The purchaser has undertaken a appraisal of the property and submitted same for consideration, along with an agreement of purchase and sale or offer to purchase the property for consideration within 10% value of the appraised value. The municipality, since then, has received concerns from neighboring agricultural lands downwind in the drainage plain with regards to drainage in the general vicinity that would naturally flow through a variety of properties and eventually through the road allowance and through the intended purchaser's property, where it eventually hits the creek and an extension of the Carmichael drain. The concern of landowners is with which the speed of how the drainage occurs in the spring or in general, the speed with which the drainage occurs to the creek. And as such, since creating this report, there has been a subsequent recommendation to potentially undertake what is known as a mutual drain agreement between neighboring parties to undertake this agreement to improve drainage and potentially calm apprehensions from neighboring landowners in order to appease and proceed with the sale. The purchasers are here this evening and able to speak to their intention with the property and are available for questions. It is staff's opinion that the road allowance is, as originally presented, surplus to the needs of the municipality, and it is within good planning to proceed with a sale to an abutting landowner, as it is the natural course, and that alternative sales would not be in good planning, as the road allowance is only 15 meters in distance or in frontage, and would not allow any other further development. There was discussion with an intention for the agricultural partner to construct an alternate ditch straight along the road allowance directly back to the creek. Engineering in the Public Works Department has investigated that option and believes that it is not in good drainage for the property. The Director of Public Works is here this evening and can speak to that if that is the desire of council. But the engineering department has provided the clerk's office with options to provide to the purchasers and to the abutting landowners. There is potentially some disagreement on the necessity of the speed of drainage between the agricultural partner and the natural course of water, in that there are different needs for different landowners, and that perhaps council might seek to weigh those different options in their deliberations. Should council direct this evening, we could direct staff to facilitate a mutual drain agreement. We could make the agreement conditional on that, which would inevitably hold up the sale to the purchasers until such time as a drainage agreement could be entered into. However, that would inevitably prolong a process that has already been in place since March, and perhaps council may consider directing staff to broker a deal rather than make the sale conditional upon that. But I would invite any further questions that council may have, potentially to the purchasers or to us as staff.
Okay. Thank you. That's a lot of information about what is, I think, a relatively small but clearly significant parcel of land that has been the subject of our municipal disposition policy. So with that in mind, I'll just look to council colleagues for any questions in regards to the proposed sale. Obviously, Ms. Preston has acknowledged that that the recommendation as presented this evening can be further modified to direct for the establishment of a mutual, what's the word again, Ms. Preston? Mutual
Drain agreement.
Mutual drain agreement. And certainly that may be something that, from what I'm hearing, could be enormously valuable in the long run. So I'll invite council colleagues to ask any questions of Ms. Preston or Mr. Finley or others who are here. So I see Deputy Mayor and the screen. Councillor O'Sullivan, are both have their hands up, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Preston. I'm just wondering, is there any possibility that this road allowance is of value or could be of value to the Kemptville Snowmobile Club or the ATV clubs in terms of connectivity? With all the new development that's going on, I know that they're experiencing a lot of challenges with routes for snowmobiling and that kind of recreation. So I just wondered, is that of any value to them? Have they been consulted in this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor O'Sullivan, they have not been consulted in the process thus far. And it is my understanding that the Snowmobile Club and the ATV Club enter into a number of agreements with private landowners in order to facilitate a variety of trails throughout the counties. And that this sale would not prevent them from potentially utilizing this road allowance in the future, should they be able to reach a mutual agreement with the purchasers if we proceed with that.
Thank you. So we don't know if they use it currently as any part of their trails? No? Okay, thanks.
So Ms. Dunlop, do you want to add so everyone can hear your response?
Certainly, Your Worship. No, this is not currently part of any the snowmobile trail maps that we have.
All right, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the Director of Public Works. We have an opportunity, I understand, to alter the recommendation to address the idea of a mutual, either facilitating or brokering, doesn't matter how you put it, a mutual drain agreement. Does the municipality get involved in facilitating mutual drain agreements? And if they do, what's the process?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor. Excuse me, typically for a mutual drain agreement, it's through private landowners. It's not taking a process through the municipality. If we go through that route, there's a municipal drain option. However, that's a bit more involved. There's a lot more costs and evaluations that need to go through that, through the Drainage Act. Both processes do go through the Drainage Act. However, the mutual drainage agreement stays privately with the private homeowners that surround that drain. So we could help facilitate in terms of potentially guiding them through the steps of the process, but we wouldn't be involved in terms of operating or managing the drain afterwards. It'd be through the private homeowners.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that it connects to a municipal drain, the Carmichael drain. Does the property, is that part of the catchment area of the Carmichael drain? And would they require, if the property owners got together to discuss a mutual drain, would they not need the municipality's resources to figure out the engineering of how we would outlet, eventually to the Carmichael drain?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor, so the natural drainage course is already there. It wouldn't be a new drainage course. So there wouldn't be that, and that's where the mutual drain option becomes something that's a bit more viable, where as long as the private homeowners agree to its construction and how it functions, then there's no other process to move that forward. It's already its outlet is already located as it ties into the municipal drain, so that catchment area has already been accounted for in terms of the municipal drain. Now that this natural water course, like I mentioned, could be an agreed upon function of the neighboring homeowners, so that if there is works to improve it, what the agreement does is help them share that cost. Again, it's not a process the municipality gets involved in. It's an agreement between homeowners.
So as I understand your answer, Mr. Finley, if de facto these lands are accommodating a natural water course that assists with drainage in that area, by virtue of sort of mandating or helping to facilitate the establishment of a mutual drain agreement, we are effectively ensuring that that piece of land that has been previously surplus, that was municipal land, continues to function as a drainage outlet, if you will, for water from neighboring lands?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for correction, the natural drainage course crosses the road allowance, but continues through the private property of the purchasers, and then continues past their property before it reaches the outlet. So it doesn't outlet into the road allowance; it just passes through the road allowance.
Right. So that natural water course goes through the very small parcel of land that we've effectively surplus, but you're saying continues on to the private property of the prospective purchasers of this land this evening.
Correct, and beyond them as well.
So I presume it's in everyone's interest to ensure that this parcel that is in question this evening continues to function as part of that drainage course, water course?
Natural drainage course.
Natural
correct, yes. But,
drainage course.
Yes, the intent would have it to continue to drain the lands that are upstream of this property. Yeah.
Right. So everybody, I presume, has a collective investment in that continuing.
Correct. Currently at the state, it's informal because there is no mutual drain agreement. That bit more formalizes that process. The property owners agree that they will contribute funds to help if there's necessary, but informally, yes.
So, so then the mutual drain agreement is a way of formalizing it effectively between and among private property owners.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So, Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Director of Public Works. Mr. Finley, if you could clarify, is the that parcel of land in question right now functioning as a drainage outlet the way the property owners in the area would like it to, or some of the property owners? Because my understanding is that there's a concern with the flooding and the lack of drainage. And so right now it doesn't seem to be functioning the way it should or could. Is that correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Stark again, the small, again, the section that we look at, or that is in that road allowance piece as being considered, is only a small 20-meter portion of a ditch. So as far as we are aware, that piece is functioning as it's intended. Again, it crosses through multiple private properties. What's happening on those private pieces is not something that is under our review.
So if I may follow up, Madam Mayor, so then for that particular portion, the brokering that the municipality would play isn't solely about that small portion, it would be about the entire range to the outlet, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that would be the intention, is for that agreement to work with all parties that are in that's the catchment area of that drainage feature. Correct.
So this agreement, sorry, I have a follow-on question. So this agreement is about more than the sale of this land. It reaches beyond just the parcel of land in question this evening. So if we were to add that into the current resolution, it's part of what we're talking about tonight, but also much more than that, correct? The brokering that the municipality would do?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would take a bit more effort, as it would require reach out to all the property owners that are in or that abut that drainage feature and see if there's an agreement that can be reached. So it is more than just that little piece that's being discussed as part of that mutual drain agreement.
Ms. Preston would like to add something, but I just want to, I think Councilor Wilson, did you have anything? No? Okay, so we'll go to Ms. Preston.
Absolutely. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the rest of council, it also was brought to my attention prior to the meeting that the speed with which drainage occurs is also sometimes depending on the benefit of the user. So while there may be the desire and intention for faster drainage by an agricultural partner, someone with more ecological intention to the property may find more benefit to a slower drainage process, which allows for the natural drainage course to occur and allows for that slow drainage, which can have other benefits. So I think that we're faced with a difficult question as to with whom we're seeking to benefit the drainage, and that this perhaps is a much larger question than just the sale of this specific parcel. My concern is that by placing a condition on the agreement, that if an agreement is not able to be reached, then essentially the land cannot be sold to the abutting landowner. However, this obviously provides a mechanism to potentially foster that deal. So I think we're perhaps slightly at an impasse, and perhaps council may direct staff to return with additional information and considerations at a future meeting. Not that I wish to slow this process anymore. I believe that the purchasers have acted in good faith thus far since March. They have, incurred the cost of the appraisal for the property well to the tune of $3,000 thus far. So they have been a committed, good faith partner in this procedure. However, I think that there's potentially some additional brokerage that needs to be done.
Certainly, perhaps that makes sense given the larger questions of the implications of drainage in the region. If it's more practical or more prudent to defer consideration of this particular surplus land sale until we have a fuller picture on drainage, I think that might be wise. I know that this appears to be a parcel of land that's regarded as very essential to well-functioning drainage in the area. So I personally would feel that maybe having a more fulsome understanding of the implications of the sale of the land on neighboring property owners and the benefit of a mutual drain agreement, should that be helpful in this instance, is wise, or at least consideration of those things. So council colleagues, look to you to see if you have an appetite to defer so that we can get more information. Council Barkley.
Yeah, in general, I would be in support of deferral, even though it does slow the process down, and it could slow the process down considerably. I'm just thinking that when people talk about adequate drainage, it's like them talking about adequate parking. So we obviously have a difference of opinion, but I had a question either of the director or yourself, Chloe. Is all the property that is affected or is fed or drained by this natural water course that crosses the road allowance, is it all zoned agricultural? No, no.
Mr. Finley, go ahead.
All right. I see you shaking your head, so I'll take that as a no.
Can we just ask Mr. Finley to respond? Is that
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor. No, there is some rural properties. There's rural residential. I don't think it's rural residential designation, probably rural. But there's some, it runs through some residential properties.
Okay. Thank you. I did have another question, but it can't be that important because I
Oh,
forgot.
no, I'm so sorry. Okay, we'll come back to you. Are there any other comments at this stage? Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
It wasn't a question. It was just a comment that we just finished listening to the pre-consultation about updating our official plan. And one of the items that I note was an item that there seemed to be general consensus about removing the obstacles to developing agricultural land. So, I mean, I think we have to keep that in mind when we decide whether we're going to kick this into an extended process of trying to have a variety of different property owners reach a mutual agreement as to how fast or slow that water drains.
It's interesting because I took away a different thing, which is, I think, as some of you are aware, we've heard from some property owners in the area who are extremely concerned about the impacts of this sale on good drainage so that they can continue to cultivate agricultural land. So I think given that a scenario, I think we would want to maybe take a little more time and get a little more information about how drainage works in that area so that at least council has the benefit of that perspective before proceeding. Councilor Strachan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, perhaps I maybe a question for Director Finley. So when it comes to these kinds of areas where there's a different zoning for the different lands, is there a priority given? Is there any hierarchy of lands when it comes to influence over the type of drainage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Strachan, again, it all comes down to the type of drainage feature that it is. Seeing that this is a natural drainage function, each landowner determines how their piece of the drainage water course functions. Now, once you get into the mutual drains, then it's looked at differently. It looks at from the catchment area that is managed through the municipality. Again, it's not the land use that's designated, it's the catchment area and what water is supposed to flow to it that is being managed properly. So we ensure that catchment area that's entering that municipal drain is functioning properly. So it depends on the type of drain that it is. Again, a roadside ditch. We also look at ensuring that it's functioning properly, that we can drain our roads properly. So the priority doesn't necessarily fall onto the land use. It's the type of drainage feature that it is. If that helps.
It doesn't, but I don't think I can get all my answers for this evening. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Preston, I think, was advising that perhaps while not using the word deferral, getting more information might be the most prudent approach. So council, I'm testing your wish for a deferral. I'll need a mover and a seconder if that's the direction we're going. Oh, yes, sure. If you want to address, please come down. Thank you. I apologize. I was looking this way and not to the front. Yes, correct. Well, yes. You have to press the button. You need to press the button. We'll see. You can give it a shot.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Sean Ward. I'm the owner of the land that wants to purchase the 20 meters that we're talking about tonight. And really, I just want to clarify here. We already have the tributary runs through our property, probably a good 600-700 meters. It flows freely. We've worked with the conservation authorities where beavers have come in and blocked portions of it. They've cleared it out. We always continue to make sure that water flows freely. And there's no intent to block it. The issue that's been raised by Arcan Farms, it's a cash cropper that owns and farms 1,000+ acres in this community. You know, he's concerned that we are going to block the drainage. And we have absolutely no intent to block the drainage. If anything, we have shown already through our work with Rideau Valley Conservation Area that we look after the land. We've planted 1,500 trees on our property around the land that we want to buy. And we've put riparian type trees along the tributary to help soak up water, to help encourage the geese and the ducks in the spring to have a habitat to live. And we continue as our intent to want to do that. We're not going to block the flow of the water. As far as the issue at hand here, it's upstream. All the drainage concerns are not with the land that we want to buy or the land that we currently own. It's with properties 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 upstream from us. There's nothing to do with the purchase of the 20 meters that's in question. So I see there's two things at hand. One, we want to buy that land so we can make it natural. There's invasive species in there of trees of the Japanese buckthorn that I want to take out. I would like to use the grants that I got from the Rideau Valley Conservation Area to plant more trees in that area. That's all we want to do. The issue at hand with Arcan Farms is they want the water to flow more quickly. So the other issue at hand is, pardon me, what is adequate flow? I can tell you that in the spring, water levels are high, but it flows quickly. So in the spring, water levels are high. Habitat that likes high water levels in spring come and live and breed, and then it goes down. No homes are flooded, and nor do we block it. And when we buy this little 20 meters there, we'll continue to, if there are problems, we already have a caveat on the land on that tributary that we can't block it. If a beaver comes and builds a dam, we have no say. The authorities can come in and break that dam apart. And we're the first ones to call them that there's a beaver there. So there's no issue here about blocking water. The issue is the concern that upstream of a neighbor's that nothing to do with this purchase is concerned about he wants the water to flow more quickly. Why? Because he has corn and beans to grow. So he wants the water to have white caps so it gets to that Kemptville River and moves on quickly. My attitude is no, actually, water is meant to go slowly. We don't want homes to flood out. We don't want roadways to be covered. That's not happening here right now, nor will it happen in the future. We're just asking to own this land so we can be stewards of it. And if there are blockage issues for the portions that we're responsible for, we'll deal with it. There's already caveats in place for the land that we own. And we expect that that 20 meters will be additional caveats, absolutely. So I would encourage the council to separate the issue. One, approve the sale of land. We're already out $3,000 in good faith where we had it appraised on the direction of council on your previous decision. So if you go and do another study and have to get another 5, 10 landowners all to agree, that's not going to happen. That's going to take, it's a drainage issue that Arcan Farms is identifying that's an issue. but only for his business. I'm not sure of what his issue is, but there's no flooding, there's no issues. There's no roads that are being covered by water in the spring. No homes are being flooded. So separate the drainage issue that deals with 5, 10 homes in the area from our intent to buy this section of land and to treat it ecologically. That's all.
Thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'm still struggling about the, certainly I think you as a property owner have beautifully articulated your intentions and your commitment to the ecological well-being of your property. So appreciate your significant interest in the land. I think, again, I'm struggling with the value, or I'm curious about the value of a mutual drain agreement that gives everyone in the area comfort that no matter if this land belongs to this property owner or changes hands down the road, that there's a mechanism in place to ensure that there is a shared understanding, and there's also good cost sharing in terms of how to ensure that this drainage functions properly. And we know we have climate change and drainage issues sort of plague this municipality, it seems, for all kinds of reasons. So I'm not an expert here. I'm just trying to navigate the different perspectives I'm hearing this evening. So again, council colleagues, it's at your discretion about how we proceed in terms of a deferral or an amendment to the recommendations, which would direct the establishment or help to facilitate the establishment of a mutual drainage agreement. I don't know what the process is beyond that. So I'm looking to you. I will recognize council colleagues. I see Deputy Mayor, Councillor Strachan, Councillor O'Sullivan, and I just want to ask our CAO if there's anything she wants to add at this stage of the game before I hear from council colleagues.
Thank you, Your Worship. And should council decide to go down the deferral path, I think that it's important to have all the facts in order to make an informed decision. And should that deferral come along, we can work with the potential purchaser as well as get the drainage maps, get some more background in regards to what the impact and the effectiveness of what a mutual drain actually is. Mr. Ward has brought up the fact and the conflict in regards to the different types of drainage. So I think that we can bring you back drainage maps, some background information, and maybe something more concrete in regards to what Mr. Arcand has in regards to intent. Having this process stopped up to continue to labor is unfortunate. And as Ms. Preston had said earlier, we had negotiated, as well as the homeowners negotiating in good faith in regards to the surplus of the lands. So if it is council's will, we can provide that additional information in a timely fashion.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ms. Dunlop, and we'll go to Deputy Mayor Barclay, Councillor Sullivan, and then Councillor Strachan. I think I have the list right. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to the Director of Public Works. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Finley, that this natural water course is part of a catchment area that drains into the Carmichael Mutual Drain, and that for all intents and purposes, that's a legal and adequate outlet for that catchment area. So according to the Drainage Act, is someone able to stop the flow of a natural water course if it drains into a mutual drain, not a mutual drain, a municipal drain? Is it legal to stop the natural flow?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'd have to look at some legal opinions under the Drainage Act of what's available. That's what we'd have to return, as the CEO mentioned, with that information for you.
Okay, thank you. So are you done? We'll go to Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to perhaps perhaps Ms. Preston, perhaps Ms. Dunlop, or Mr. Finley, I'm not sure who can answer it, but so if I understand correctly, this natural water course as it exists right now is not creating a problem for anyone. And it's, so if we did not sell this land, things would just stay the way they are. It would be a road allowance with this water course running near or through it. So if it's purchased by the potential purchaser, he has no intention of changing it. He's going to leave it the way it is. So there's no difference, if I understand it correctly. And if it's sold to someone else, then they want to make a change to that water course. And in that case, it would not, it would lessen the amount of water that would remain in this piece of land. So that's a question. And secondly, with respect to ownership, is this a separate 20-meter severed piece of land, or does it actually become added to the potential purchaser's existing property? It's not two separate packages, it just becomes part and parcel of the existing land?
I believe Ms. Dunlop is going to try to answer those questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. In accordance with our surplus land bylaw, yes, it would become part of the parcel. It would become part of the parent parcel. It cannot be sold to anyone but the landowner to the right or the landowner to the left of that road allowance. But if I can backtrack one other question in regards to the common law, common drainage law in regards to tributaries, it is my understanding we can get an upgraded legal opinion, but no, it cannot be blocked. It's a tributary. It's a feeding in. So under the common law, it is my understanding that it cannot be blocked.
Thank you. Sure. So we'll have Ms. Preston and then we'll go to Councillor Strachian. I think, though, the question here is not blocked, but the speed at which water is flowing as per the interventions of the prospective property owner. So I don't, certainly down the road, if it was a different property owner, what would that mean? I guess it's really just the rate of the flow of the water going through that particular parcel. But we'll go to Ms. Preston and then Councillor Strachian.
Apologies through you, Madam Mayor, just to address Councillor O'Sullivan's initial question with regards to whether or not there was a problem. I guess the problem is in the eye of the beholder. There may not be problems per se for certain landowners, but we have been notified as a result of this parcel of land being declared surplus that the Arcan Farms have expressed that they're unhappy with the rate with which the current drainage is flowing, and that they expressed via this process as it became available, or it became publicly available, that we were declaring it surplus to the needs of the municipality, that they sought to potentially solve that problem by creating a new drainage course through the municipal road allowance. And to that end, I'm not sure if we can say whether something is a problem or not, or whether it's the preference of one owner or one landowner, but we certainly could potentially bring back options and potentially even broker a meeting between the landowners to see if there's an agreement that can be reached and brought back to council that meets the needs of both the farmer and maybe there are caveats that we can agree to or concessions perhaps that can be agreed to on both ends that could potentially solve this matter. I can't speak to that. Obviously, that would be done through a meeting or a brokerage of that kind, but that is possible.
Thank you. So if I may, the Arcan Farms that has expressed a desire to have more water flowing through it, are they abutting it? No. So they do not have the option to purchase it then. It's, okay. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and I'll throw the question out to whoever can answer this. Previous to declaring this land surplus, were there complaints that came from neighboring properties regarding the rate of drainage?
Mr. Finley, would you have had any awareness of that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Strachan. No, we haven't had formal complaints come through. We do know it is low-lying area. It does get wet in the spring.
Understood, but there were no complaints that came in?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that it sounds opportunistic, I guess, to want to control that specific surplus piece of land at this stage because it wasn't raised prior to this conversation that this needed to change. So if it were to continue to be maintained as it is right now, it would not be taking away as if the municipality continued to own it and leave it as it is right now. And perhaps that is where the caveat comes in. Mike, and to Mr. Ward's comments, there are already caveats on his existing property that is part of that entire drainage system. So to tie that into his property and have the same caveats seems to be a reasonable approach in my mind. My concern is that what we're talking about here isn't just that particular road allowance. It's a much larger picture than that. And to hold up this process as being the only reason why there's an issue upstream, I think is perhaps unreasonable, and that this could go forward while still recognizing that there's bigger drainage issues and a mutual agreement amongst the property owners may be required regardless. And if the choice was made to bring in the municipality to help broker that, then perhaps that would be reasonable. But I don't think that this particular piece of land, from everything that I've heard tonight, as well as at conversations at the Ag and Rural Affairs Advisory Committee, that truly it's about this small piece of land being the big concern. And given that there were no complaints on record prior to this conversation, I think that further adds to my perspective on this. So I would be comfortable in moving the motion as it stands right now with perhaps added wording that would recognize that the caveats that are on the current piece of land owned by Mr. Ward be applied to the surplus piece of land and that the purchase be allowed to go forward. Thank you.
All right, so I can see Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Of course, keep in mind that Ms. Preston has just offered another scenario, which is to at least facilitate a conversation between the prospective purchasers of this small, very small parcel of land and the Arcans. So just keep that in the back of your mind as something that's also been offered. But I'll defer to colleagues, Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor.
I was going to second that motion that Councillor Strachan has put forward.
So let's be clear about what the motion is. And that is that council pass and enact bylaw 9424 being a bylaw to stop up and close an unopened road allowance between lot 15 and lot 16 in the sixth concession being all of pin 681180101. That council authorize the sale of the unopened road allowance and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement of purchase and sale and any other documents required to facilitate the sale of land.
The addition of the caveats was the amendment that I was looking for to ensure that the unopened road allowance as it is added onto the existing property owned by Mr. Ward, that the caveats that are on his current property to make sure that it isn't impeded or anything like that, that those same caveats be applied to the unopened road allowance.
And who imposes those caveats? Do we even have jurisdiction over those caveats? Mr. Finley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A section of that is regulated to the RVCA. So that's where I believe where the caveats are coming from.
So do we have jurisdiction to tell the Conservation Authority what to do with this very small parcel?
It isn't in their regulatory area, so they wouldn't have the RVCA wouldn't have the enforcement of it.
Right. So despite your good intention there, then I
To
don't think that would
align,
apply.
simply to align what's on the existing property with the unopened road allowance. So not to create something new or different,
No, I
but to
understand.
simply say that they exist on the current property, and why not align the piece that will be now joined with it to say the same thing?
Right. I'm just curious about whether or not we have the jurisdiction to impose those conditions. Certainly, I'm going to look to Ms. Preston and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Barkley.
Apologies, through you, Madam Mayor. It is my understanding, and we could obtain a legal opinion on this, but once the properties are merged, the caveats that exist on the parent property would inevitably become party to the merged portion, which would be the road allowance in question. So I'm not sure if we would even need to have the caveat, because which we could receive a legal opinion on, and I could bring that back to council, but it is my understanding that whatever is on the parent property, similar to the way if a parent property had a mortgage on it and you assumed an additional parcel, that the mortgage would inevitably become a party to the entire new parcel or the merged parcel. But
Ms. Dunlop, is that your understanding?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay, so that's a bit of a hanging chat, clearly. If it matters to Councillor Strachan in terms of your moving of this motion.
It's simply because I think that it would only make sense that the entire property would fall under the same set of rules. If we need to delay
Yes.
a decision on that, it's because we're looking for that, that, and not to delay to allow for brokering and a conversation and so on. Like, I think that's, I would ultimately say that if we have that legal opinion, then it would be well in line with what we have here.
Indeed, but given that that's a caveat that you're asking for in the context of what's being moved this evening, if staff cannot give the confidence that that caveat can be honored, I think then we are looking to delay consideration of the motion, because I'm not hearing from Ms. Preston or Ms. Dunlop that is obvious. Okay, Mr. Mosher, do you have anything to add? Karen thinks you might.
I was just going to add that my understanding, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but is that any obligations arising from drainage issues are all common law. It's all under the common law. If this parcel is added to the next parcel, any common law obligations and rights to not impede drainage are carried with the property as it merges with the other property. So there's no statement or thing that gets added to the deed. It's just those obligations exist today. Those obligations exist tomorrow when those properties are merged.
And with that in mind, the Conservation Authority, their direction would be considered common law?
There's sort of, Your Worship, there's two conversations happening. So
Yes.
it's the common law drainage rights under case law, the common courts. The Conservation Authority regulates alterations of water courses. So if somebody wants to dam it up, stop it up, alter the course, any of these types of things, that's when they require that regulatory permit, either under the Lakes and Rivers Improvement Act from the ministry or Section 28 from the conservation authorities. So it's a separate conversation to the common law drainage one.
Okay, excellent. So going back to the mover and the seconder, we have a mover and a seconder for some sort of motion. I've read the language that's been provided by staff. Councillor Strachan, you wanted to add a caveat. Are you satisfied with the discussion to date? And because I don't quite understand what that caveat is in this moment, I apologize. So either you proceed with a caveat and we crystallize that as part of the consideration of the motion, or the mover and seconder can withdraw consideration of the motion until more fulsome information has been provided on the caveat as per the direction of, or the request of Councillor Strachan.
Thank you to you, Madam Mayor. On that note, if staff is unable to confirm what happens when the two pieces of land merge, then yes, I would ask that it be deferred, because we do need that piece of information to ensure that that is indeed what will proceed from here.
So are you then moving to defer, would be my question.
I will move to defer.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan, will you second that deferral? Or does anyone wish to second the deferral?
I will, but I would like to know how long it will take to have this come back so that we don't have unnecessary delays in this.
Absolutely.
Like if we can get that legal opinion before our next council meeting and bring it back then, that would be great.
So Ms. Dunlop, can you speak to that? Or Ms. Preston, what is the process? Is it just a couple of weeks? If you can just focus on the question.
Given that our next meeting is next week and that the agenda is being circulated tomorrow, I would request that that not be the direction of council to return next week, that there is some time to provide, but we do have a meeting on December 3rd that I could return this legal opinion to. If it's able to be acquired for tomorrow and a report is able to be written and I'm able to circulate it, I will do my best efforts to have it on next week's agenda. However, concession to potentially allow it for December 3rd would be very much appreciated.
So outside goal is December 3rd. Okay. So, so I'm looking, so Councillor Strachan has made a motion to defer. I am looking to see if there's indeed. I'm looking to see if there's a seconder for the motion to defer, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for a deferral? I'm not seeing a seconder for deferral.
I will.
Okay. And I will go to Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'm fairly confident, and I'm not a lawyer, that, Deputy Director Mosher's explanation of common law will hold. And from my limited understanding of the Drainage Act, it's composed of common law as well as statute law. And I think that was the distinction that Director Mosher was making. If I'm not in support of deferral, I think it's clear to me that the caveats on the existing property would apply to the acquired property. And I don't see the necessity of having to get a legal opinion. To me, it's obvious, so I'm not in support of deferral. And if it does go to a vote, I'd ask that it's recorded. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Strachan had initiated a motion. She subsequently effectively withdrew that motion to defer. So certainly we can have all kinds of debate on the deferral. That's where we're at in this stage of the conversation. So we understand that Deputy Mayor is objecting to the deferral, is not supportive. We have staff confirming that they can bring a report back on December 3rd. So I will invite any other comments on the deferral before calling the question. Does anyone wish to speak to a deferral? Seeing none, so I'm going to call the question on the deferral and we'll do a recorded vote. So with that in mind, Ms. Preston, do you want to call the recorded vote then? Okay.
We'll now proceed with a recorded vote with regards to the deferral of the motion presented to council, that council pass and enact bylaw 9424, being a bylaw to stop up and close an unopened road allowance between lot 15 and 16 in the 6th concession, being all of pins 68-118-0101, and that council authorize the sale of the unopened road allowance. And that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement of purchase and sale and any other documents required to facilitate the sale of land. Council will proceed with a recorded vote by either yay, nay, or abstain. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Strachan.
Yay for deferral.
Councillor O'Sullivan.
Abstain.
Councillor Barkley.
Nay.
Mayor Peckford.
Yay. Yep.
The yeas have it. The motion is deferred.
Okay, thank you. So with that, colleagues, we look forward to getting more information no later than December 3rd. So thank you for what is a robust discussion this evening. Drainage is an interesting conversation in North Granville, there's no doubt. With that, we're going to go to the Ferguson Forest Center Bridge loan options. We understand, Ms. Dunlop, you have a report or an updated report to present in regards to Ferguson Forest.
Thank you, Your Worship, I do. Good evening. There's no presentation with this report this evening, but as a follow-up to last week's discussion, I provide the following additional information. On November the 5th, Council provided direction to staff to return with terms of a potential loan and other considerations. The Community Futures Granville Board has approved a $300,000 infrastructure loan for the repair and rehabilitation of the greenhouse water system and, if available funds, other infrastructure upgrades. Successful remediation of the greenhouse water supply would place the FFC in a better position to pay back any funds provided. A copy of the well water assessment final consultant's report with recommendations and costs has been provided to the municipality. The Community Future Grenville have approved the loan with the following terms. A first position mortgage on the 200 Van Buren Street property, subject to council approval in accordance with the current agreement. Promissory note valued at $300,000 to the FFCC. Community Futures to register a general security agreement. Loan issued at prime of 5.95, fixed for first year, 15-year amortization, 2 years interest only, with some annual reporting requirements, such as audited financial statements prepared by the FFC accountant provided to Community Futures within 180 days of the FFC final year end, plus some governance review by a third party conditions which have been included in the report. Should council consider providing an operational loan with a one-time payment on or before November 30th, 2024, similar conditions should be considered, such as payment of interest-only loan for 2 years at prime, 5.95 on this loan, and the existing loan for 200 Van Buren payments to be revised. 15-year amortization for the loan at prime, starting after 2 years. Completion of government updates, including bylaw revisions, to ensure compliance with ONCA within 24 months. Municipality to agree that CFG can register in first place position for the mortgage at 200 Van Buren. The municipality to register the balance of the loan for the house at 200 Van Buren in second position. That a general security agreement to be completed for the additional loan to be secured with assets of the FFCC list to be provided. Consideration to attach a lien to the existing greenhouses. Submission of annual updates to council, including audited financial statements prepared by FFC accountant, provided within 180 days of the FFC fiscal year end, and an updated business plan. No charge from the municipality for current level of service mowing at the FFC and maintenance of the 2 parking lots off County Road 44. Joint municipality and FFC committee regarding recreational land uses, and commitment to updating business practices to focus on sustainability and long-term profitability. Municipal staff, while still contemplating the overall request of the FFC, have been provided cash flow projections and the cycle of germination to market of the FFC products, which provides for positive income projections after 2 years once the water quality improvement plan has been completed. This is based on contributions from Community Futures and municipal bridge financing. Options for consideration included in the report are option 1, provide bridge financing with conditions at a value of $400,000, and option 2, decline financial assistance and initiate a transition plan. Option 1 will require municipality to have an immediate outlay of funds which can be accommodated from municipal reserves. In addition, there will be a decrease in municipal revenues of $17,000 per year for the transfer of grass mowing to the Parks and Recreation Department. Additionally, resources and impacts of the ongoing maintenance of the gravel parking lots off County Road 44 could be accomplished with existing equipment, although additional gravel and person hours would be required. Option 2 has no immediate outlay of funds and reduces the financial risk of the loan receivable. This option will include additional staff resources and expenses to be considered through the transition plan, which are unknown at this time. And this completes my report.
Thank you. So, colleagues, Karen has obviously provided a lot of information, much of which I believe aligns with what Community Futures has provided as conditions for their loan, which I believe was approved last week. So comments or questions in regards to Ms. Dunlop's report? Nothing at this stage? Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I'm considering these two options that the CAO has presented, and with the additional information provided, I still have a number of questions and don't feel comfortable with either option as they stand right now. There's two. First of all, I'm uncomfortable with $400,000. And I think we need to take a look at that figure and possibly break it down with, a certain amount of money at the beginning and the rest conditional on successfully fulfilling some of these conditions here. I mentioned last week that I feel the ongoing maintenance, even though it's part of the mission, the current mission and vision of the Ferguson Forest Center, I don't think they're in a position to live up to that vision currently, given the financial situation. And I'd like to see more detail. I'm not really happy with the suggestion of a joint municipality FFC committee. I'm not sure where that would end up, and I think that the municipality should take on the responsibility of maintenance and development of the recreational portion of the Ferguson Forest Center. So what I'm saying, I guess, in summary, is that I still think we have to take a look at those options, and I'm not prepared to get behind either one at this point in time. And but I'd be curious to hear what your worship says and the rest of the council, but those are my feelings.
Okay. Certainly, I think we've gotten more specificity in terms of the conditions of the loan. I think I too would have liked to have seen Ms. Dunlop, and it's no way to criticize or diminish what's been offered. It's certainly more fulsome, but I think it would be helpful, certainly from my perspective, to see how the $400,000 would be deployed and whether or not it could be broken down into increments that would allow us as a council to be confident that the loan, if you will, was such that we were managing risk. So I would like to see a little more information on how that proposed $400,000 over 2 years would be deployed. Is it primarily for human resourcing? Is it for facilities? Is it for some of the obviously materials that are so fundamental to growing those trees? So that is somewhat lacking, unfortunately, in this report, which I think is challenging when we're looking at the proposition of lending a considerable amount of money. So certainly, in regards to how the recreational asset is managed overall, it would have seemed logical that relieving the FFC of some of that burden made sense. We heard differently last week, and I'm not clear on what that path looks like in terms of how to support the FFC or how the municipality can have more involvement that might help the FFC at this time focus specifically on the challenges around the nursery. So that remains a question mark for me as well. But certainly, I'm happy to hear from other council colleagues. Councillor Strachan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In addition to the comments you made, I agree. I think having a better understanding of how the 400K would be deployed over the next couple of years, I don't think is just nice to have. I think there's an obligation to provide that information to us. Understanding that we're now second in line for a house that we purchased is unfortunate, but the Grenville, the Futures folks got ahead of us on that one. And so I think it puts us in a more precarious position as far as that goes. So I think I would agree that some additional information from the Ferguson Forest Board to be able to answer some of these questions would be useful and necessary in order to make a decision towards any kind of bridge financing loan to them.
Yes, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I do have cash flow projections that have been provided by the FFC and also from Community Futures as well. It does identify that the requested funds, the 400,000, are operational deficiencies, which with the water repairs would be they'd be going at the end of that, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel after that 2 years. What I can do with the group is try to get some specificity in regards to what those specific annual operating losses are and bring it back. It seems like a weekly report, but bring something back with the clerk's indulgence to next week's meeting.
Right. And again, that meeting is now scheduled for Tuesday, the 19th. Is that correct, Ms. Preston? Okay. And with that in mind, I do wonder, in terms of the recreational assets beyond what's been proposed in the report, is there anything else to be provided? Again, having had some conversation with FFC folks, both individually and collectively, there seems to be a want to retain some of the jurisdiction or authority over the recreational assets or to continue to contribute to those recreational assets over time. But I do wonder if we're in a position as a municipality to provide some additional support. It's not clear. I know you're having conversations with the FFC outside of what we're able to have in this forum. So maybe you can shed some light on that in a further report next week.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if I can just highlight that, yes, this has been a point of conversation with the FFC and the municipality. The two items that we have identified are the easily separated. The operation and maintenance of the gravel turnarounds off County Road 43, as well as the mowing, which we already complete as a function. A lot of the other recreational amenities and that are provided to the community and beyond are done on a volunteer basis. So the cash outlay is minimal or non-registered in regards to the FFC because it is done primarily through a volunteer force, of which the municipality has greater difficulty maintaining.
Has greater difficulty maintaining? What does that mean?
In other words, how would we get all those people together in regards to those recreational amenities without some much more formal process?
I see. You're saying the FFC has more leeway as a not-for-profit to rally and deploy volunteers? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say that would be an appropriate way to say it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Strakian?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to CAO Dunlop. I think there are two other points in here that noted that there's the list of assets, that the list is to be provided. So it would be, I think, helpful to have that list of assets and to understand what the full value of that is at the same time. And I'm not suggesting a full legal appraisal of the house, but to understand what the current value is of the house so that we would know that what we're second in line for, at least with, based on current values today, a reasonable estimate of what the house would be worth today if it were sold, for example. Thank you.
Okay. We're certainly aware of a FFC deadline, and we too have been working hard, as you have been, Ms. Dunlop, to try to bring clarity to this matter for council. So it sounds like, if I'm reading council colleagues correctly, not always reading them correctly, but I hope in this instance I am, that we will proceed to receive more information next Tuesday. No motion has been read into the record, Ms. Preston, so I assume we can just provide direction to staff without formalizing it, or would you wish for it to be formalized?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would be my preference to receive it for information purposes and provide direction to staff.
Okay.
I would also note that, as I noted
Right.
at the beginning of the meeting, that a deputation was received with regards to this item. If council would indulge, I'll read it into the record.
Sure.
And then circulate it and make it part of the public record that's online, as well as provide a copy in hard copy to anyone who should desire it as
Okay,
well.
so the steps are, you're going to read the deputation, and then council will consider the recommendation to receive the report with direction to staff to come back with more fulsome information as requested next Tuesday. Correct? Okay, fire away.
Bear with me.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Peckford, council members, and fellow residents. Today, thanks to the commitment of Community Futures Grenville, CFG, and new opportunities for financial support from the North Grenville municipality, the sale of municipal land is no longer part of the solution being considered to address Ferguson Forest Center's financial needs. This is an achievement as our community has expressed that our land should remain held in trust, preserved for future generations. 1,220 residents have signed a petition urging a halt to any land disposition at the Ferguson Forest Center, FFC, underscoring our commitment to this shared heritage. Ferguson Forest Center is not only cherished for its vital role in environmental stewardship, but also for its cultural and agricultural heritage. The 13-acre municipal property within Ferguson Forest Center plays a critical role in North Grenville, functioning as both an aquifer and a vital part of alternative stormwater management. Even in its current undisturbed state, this land is working as an essential component of our local hydrological system. With its permeable soils, it naturally filters and stores groundwater, allowing rainwater to infiltrate and replenish the underlying aquifers, which help maintain water levels in our town well. This ensuring a clean and reliable water supply while bolstering our community's resilience against flooding as the landscape regulates water flow, mitigates surface runoff, and reduces erosion risk. The natural vegetation and soil within this agriculturally zoned land function as a powerful filtration system, intercepting and removing pollutants before they reach the aquifer. Preserving this land in its current agricultural state is essential for ensuring these irreplaceable filtration services continue, supporting clean water supply, effective stormwater management, and sustainable groundwater levels. Agricultural zoning preserves the integrity of these functions while opening doors for growth in green, economically sustainable development, cornerstones of North Grenville's ecological resilience and public health. Moreover, Ferguson Forest Center stands as a pillar of cultural and heritage agricultural in our community, a legacy of nearly 80 years that we are eager to celebrate next year. As one of the few remaining heritage sites dedicated to forestry and sustainable land use, FFC is a living tribute to North Grenville's commitment to environmental care and agricultural heritage. Its trees, trails, and lands are an ongoing symbol of our community's roots in conservation and agriculture, values that define and unite us. Our community has voiced a resounding message. We deeply value and cherish Ferguson Forest Center, not only for its practical contributions, but also as a piece of our history and a cornerstone of our future. FFC embodies a rich tradition and an environmental legacy that you proudly hold in trust for generations to come. In closing, we stand in support of a bridge loan to Ferguson Forest Center, provided it includes strict terms of accountability and public transparency. As taxpayers, we are effectively shareholders in the Ferguson Forest Center because the public funds, our tax dollars, are proposed to support the FFC's financial stability and operations. Therefore, it is essential that our financial involvement is met with clear oversight. The Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Section 224 mandates that councils ensure public access to information and promote transparency. We propose that this loan includes the publication of annual general meeting minutes, publicly accessible financial reports, and regular progress updates. Transparency in the use of public funds is not just responsible governance, it reinforces the trust and investment our community places in the FFC. The people of North Grenville are watching, and we expect nothing less than full accountability and stewardship of our shared resources. Thank you, Heather Papazzi.
Okay, well, thank you for reading that into the public record. We appreciate it. And it will be circulated as part of the ongoing record. Mr. Herring? Okay, you will need to come down for the purposes of the live stream. Oh, but maybe just, I'm so sorry, just for the purposes of the public record, you should come down so that you can be appropriately mic'd. Okay. We'll just make sure that the batteries are working in said mic. Santerre, don't go anywhere. Just in case there's any static.
How's that?
I think we're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just trying to not delay this and belabor it too far. To answer firstly to Heather Papazzi's question of accountability and we are a private company, not for profit, but it's a corporation, and our information, our financial information is not open to the public. It's provided to you for this exercise and as a partner and a board member. But it's not something that we will or ever intend to provide public. We operate a business, and we have proprietary information in that's specific to the business and critical that it's kept confidential. Any party to that, other than our partners, have to sign an NDA, and that's standard. One of the things that came up certainly is this discussion of assets and whether the proposed agreement is covered. We've provided a list of assets, which I believe far exceeds the demand from both the municipal loan that we're looking for right now and the Community Futures Grenville as well. So it's not an issue that the house doesn't cover everything. We have assets that far exceed the amounts, the total 700 that we're looking for right now. If we're looking at how the money gets paid out to us so that it is more in alignment with our cash expenditures, I mean, that's certainly something that's not unreasonable to look at. We don't provide, as a board, the money to the nursery and say, here's a cash windfall and see how you can spend it. Even now, in our plans, the money would go into our cash reserves, and it is only drawn on at board request and permission. Whether we decide to sort of look at a strategy to pay out the 4,000 over a more extended period of time, that's something that's not unreasonable to look at. But to continually belabor this, our staff are clearly, as you heard tonight, anxious about their future and the impact of these decisions on their employment. And I think that's not unreasonable for them at this point. We do have a business plan that has been vetted quite extensively, and I think it stands, and we have a solid future. When it comes to the recreational properties, this is our mandate. We've managed this now for almost 25 years, and we've provided, I feel, a significant asset to this community at no cost to this community. None of our facilities cost our residents or visitors anything, and we have supported that significantly over the last 25 years and plan to continue to do that through volunteers, through the money that we do raise through the nursery when it's profitable. And we have supported that even in hard times, and we'll continue to do that. But I think we need to sort of move on, if possible. Make some decisions and let our staff know where we're going. I think can well secure the loans from both the 300 and the 400. And I think it's if at all possible, we're asking that a decision be made. The staff really are, I mean, I've met with them on Monday. You had a delegation of them today, and you heard their feelings. They are invested also in the recreational properties. They've supported it over the years and want to continue to do that. But that is the mandate of our corporation. We're not looking to pass the costs and the requirements on to the municipality. We're doing this for the community and want to continue to do that.
Great, thank you. Anything for Mr. Herring? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Strachan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I take your points and I understand what you're saying, Mr. Herring. I do have one concern regarding the finances, though. is that yes, you are a private corporation, but now you are asking for public money. And I think there is a level of transparency and a level of communication to the residents in North Grenville that will be obligated as part of this process should the loan proceed. And whether it's the detailed financials, maybe not, but there will have to be a certain level of communication that I think I will speak on my behalf, that as a council member, as a elected to represent the residents and the money that you are seeking coming from the residents, I think that accountability needs to be part of the solution. And I personally don't think that that would be something that's negotiable because you're in the situation for a reason. And I think folks want to be able to see that there's progress being made and that their money's being put to good use.
I hope we've been transparent to council up to now. We provide audited financial statements every year to council. We provide minutes of all our meetings to council. We have a council member sitting on the board right now. Madam Mayor is part of our board. We're as transparent as we can reasonably be, I think, as a private running a private business. It's not that we have not been transparent up to now, but the public don't need to know our sales figures to a particular vendor or product line. That's proprietary information that we have and protect us against some of our competitors. But we are transparent when it comes to providing that information to you and always have been. This isn't news. None of this should be news to the council or to the members who have sat on our board over the last 25 years. So
certainly, I think that what Ms. Papazzi was sort of inferring was certainly obviously audited financial statements, standard disclosures are something that I think we can underscore are part of the Federal Provincial Not-for-Profit Corporation Governance Act. So certainly there's a level of disclosure that is typical of any not-for-profit corporation, whether you're federally or provincially incorporated. That being said, I think the appetite certainly among council colleagues, as I understand it tonight, and that would include myself, is that in terms of the deployment of the 400,000, it would be very helpful to have some more specificity. I think it's a fairly reasonable ask at this stage of the game. Certainly, I'm hearing again that FFC is significantly interested in retaining your involvement, your leadership in terms of recreational assets. So it's good to have that reiterated, because again, it wasn't clear what that division, if you will, or support from the municipality, how much that would bring relief to you, but we're hearing that that isn't the case. But I don't think we're looking to delay a decision more than necessary, but certainly between now and next Tuesday, some additional information can be provided that allows council to clarify its comfort with 100, 200, 400, which is obviously your request. I think that's a reasonable ask at this stage of the game. We understand your commitment to transparency. Of course, as we know, Councillor O'Sullivan has been my alternate on the board, given a grueling schedule. So I haven't had the benefit of being on the board, but Councillor O'Sullivan has done a great job of keeping me informed, and I appreciate her willingness to step up on my behalf. But I think for the purposes of the discussion we're in right now, we're really just speaking to getting a little more information on how the 400,000 would be deployed. And between now and next Tuesday, I'm fairly confident that's information that you could provide, unless I'm mistaken.
No, I think we certainly can provide that information. Great. I mean, we provided the cash flow information. It's quite apparent where the cash is needed over the next 2 years. And I think we can certainly come up with a strategy if the agreement is put in place to sort of draw on those funds in a orderly fashion that makes sort of business sense. Notwithstanding that we can't foretell the future. So we have to be able to sort of deal with what's on our table at the time, do things like ensure that our employees are paid on a timely fashion, et cetera, et cetera. But with understanding that, and if it's a fairly straightforward payout strategy, I don't think that that's unreasonable.
If you understand with some precision, as Ms. Dunlop has suggested, what those operational deficits over the next 2 years are, I would assume you would have a fairly clear understanding of how monies that would be borrowed from municipality would be deployed, right, to close that operational deficit, that financial gap, whether it's primarily human resources or other needs of the nursery. I think what would make sense is just having more information about how those resources would be deployed.
They are articulated in the cash flow.
Okay, well-
When you look at the cash flow, you can see where sort of deficits show and sort of how the cash flow is required over the next 2 years. But we can look at breaking that down a little bit better if that.
Yes, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe that, the cash flow analysis that I have been provided shows the in and the out from an operational standpoint. And if I understand council correctly, they're looking for some specificity in regards to what those specific dollars of those operational deficiencies are from. So in other words, if we can break it down in some more detail, and I think that we can take a look at this cash flow analysis, and probably Maureen and Caroline can break it down and provide that specific data.
I'm sure they can. I'm
Great.
sure they can.
Excellent. So, and again, to be very clear, I think we've spent a copious amount of time working with FFC. I don't think anyone, I would saddened if our very deliberate and comprehensive discernment at this table was characterized or reduced to reckless delays. I think that's not the intention of this council, but I do think we feel a heightened sense of accountability, to Councillor Strachan's point, when we're deliberating over this new relationship that you're asking, to forge with the municipality. So I believe that we're just doing what we believe we should be doing as elected officials in terms of proceeding with the greatest amount of information possible without compromising, of course, your business operations. We heard from staff. We understand the urgency of the matter. We organized ourselves, early in August to have a very fulsome conversation with you, and those conversations have only continued. So I do not believe we've dragged our feet. I don't think we've in any way tried to shirk our duties to proceed to consider your requests with great consideration for the impacts of whatever decision we made. But with respect, we are asking for some additional information around the 400,000, and I think it is very reasonable. So I'm very optimistic, and Mr. Herring, between you and your very competent staff and board colleagues, that you can get that information to us, and that positions council well, hopefully for a decision next week. So I'm gonna recognize any other council colleagues, and then I'm hoping we can wrap up this item, because believe it or not, there are some other items that remain. Okay, Councillor O'Sullivan, were you looking to say anything at this stage? I'm not looking. I didn't want to ignore any hands. Someone was gesturing in this direction.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Herring, I just want to make sure that the public is pretty clear that the Ferguson Tree Nursery is part of the Ferguson Forest Corporation, but they are, the Tree Nursery is the not-for-profit business that is operated within Ferguson Forest Centre, but the recreation land and the trails and all of the other recreation stuff is separate from the Ferguson Tree Nursery. Although the mission for the Tree Nursery has been that they would spend their profits on the recreation lands and the recreation activities within the Ferguson Forest Corporation. But I don't think that's worked in the past, because as a result of maybe focusing spending on recreation aspects, the infrastructure and the assets have become worn out and not replaced, and so that's why we're in this situation now. And so I think that the municipality is going to have to put money towards the recreation aspect so that the tree nursery can focus on the tree nursery business. And so the $300,000 from North Grenville or Grenville Futures, the initial problem that they have to deal with, or that you have to deal with, is the water. So of the $300,000 that you get from them, how much is going to the water? How much will you have left over to deal with other things?
At this point, unfortunately, we don't know until we resolve what the issue is with the water. So it could be as low as $50,000. It could be the full 300,000. We have no idea at this time.
So I think that's information that we probably need to know. What if it takes more than the 300,000?
Well, certainly from the work that's been done so far to try to identify the issue and whatever, it's likely not going to exceed the 300,000. It looks closer now that it would be less than 100 if the last two reports we have sort of hold out, but we're going to have to be testing over the next 3 to 6 months before we know sort of the full extent of the reparation on the wells. When that's done, then we'll know. But until that point, we hold their monies in reserve until we know. And we only draw on it initially, and that's our agreement with them, although we're not restricted, but that we only draw on that until we know that water issue is resolved, and then we're free to use that for operational expenses or other capital acquisitions. But to say that we, as a not-for-profit running a social enterprise, are in this position because we've operated the public spaces, managed the trails, the dog park, the arboretum, is not truly valid. I mean, we've run this issue is things that have happened to many businesses around this period after COVID, after labor issues. There's a whole number of things that have impacted us quite recently, and they were not tied to the fact that we spent, and we have, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the recreational lands and facilities over the last 25 years. If you could foretell the future, 25 years ago, we may have made some different decisions, but in all likelihood, we wouldn't. This was the mandate of our organization. This is why we are here, to serve the residents of North Grenville and to provide these facilities. And the social enterprise is the financial engine that we use to do that. And that's what we are. That is why our board members are our board members and with us. Not because we run a business growing trees, but because we run a social enterprise to support, and we do support, the recreational activities on our property for the benefit of the residents of North Grenville. And we have spent, and I'm sure there's nobody here would argue, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that over the years, whether it's manpower or dollars. We talked about the parking lots, and it may have to, we've spent to have those regraded and redone over the last 2 years because it's necessary for our users to have a safe and good access to our lands and our trails. We're not here sort of begging for resources to save a tree nursery business, but the business is the heart that beats to make the rest survive.
Thank you.
And that's what it's there for.
For sure.
I don't mean to lecture or
Thank
preach
you.
either.
But clearly, fundamentally, the viability of the nursery, if that is the heart, needs to be truly viable in the long run. And I think
Yes.
we are committed under the right conditions to being part of that renewal so that the nursery can be viable into the future. I say this as I should not invoke council colleagues, but nonetheless, I think we've all been preoccupied with this issue and we look forward to getting more information for next Tuesday. So I regret that we are unable to make a decision tonight, but I believe that council's communicated clearly what it would like to see. So with that, council colleagues, thank you, Mr. Herring, for
Okay.
your
Thank you,
additional
Madam Mayor.
comments. We appreciate it. And we're going to, council colleagues, consider the following recommendation. We can finesse it if it's not quite right. That council receive the report on bridge financing options for Ferguson Forest Center, and that council direct staff to return with a report next Tuesday regarding additional details in terms of the proposed loan on the table this evening, including a detailed list of items for which our up to 400,000 would be deployed, as well as an updated appraisal or market property value of the Van Buren Street property and a fulsome list of other assets. Is that doable, Ms. Dunlop?
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. I would hope that I can work together with the FFC as well as get the value as quickly as possible. And the intention would be to have a report publicly available by the posting of the agenda or the following day.
Okay, great. I'm sure Ms. Preston will forgive you. It's a little bit late. Sometimes reports need to be walked on, so whatever you can do. So with that, I'll just look for a mover and a seconder, please, colleagues. I need a mover and a seconder for the report, for the recommendation, rather. Recommendation is that we receive the report on bridge financing and direct staff, Ms. Dunlop, to return next Tuesday with additional details regarding prospective loan considerations, including the list that I've just read. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Wilson, do I have a seconder? No seconder? Okay, great. So it's seconded, and now we'll take questions. So Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder if we could add something to the list. And
Sure.
I apologize to the CAO, but I still, I'm of the belief that unlike a private corporation that is burdened by all kinds of tax, that nonprofits operate in the public trust. And I would like to get an opinion, if possible, on this idea that financial statements can be held private if you're a nonprofit. Social enterprises, the idea, are also nonprofits. There's no share capital, and they aim to create surpluses, which the Ferguson Tree Nursery has over the years, and I don't dispute the hundreds of thousands of dollars necessarily that's come out of the Ferguson Tree Nursery, and I think the community's grateful to the Ferguson Tree Nursery, but without gilding the lily too much, it's a sick puppy right now. So I don't see how it can contribute to maintaining the Ferguson Forest as it has in the past. But so if I can add to that list of the report to get a legal opinion, I think it's been highlighted by both Grenville Community Futures and this council that governance needs to be looked at as far as the Ferguson Forest Corporation goes. And I think maybe that's one piece of their revisions that are necessary to comply with ONCA that I'd like to get more clarity on. Thank you.
And it's just so I'm clear, the legal opinion is in regards to?
Private financial, if you're a nonprofit.
Disclosure of financial statements?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Certainly. Okay. I'm sure that's achievable, Ms. Preston, Ms. Dunlop. Okay. And I think maybe it's a philosophical or practical set of considerations in terms of what is proprietary versus what is disclosure in the public interest. So it's a good question. I appreciate that you've added it to the list, and I think it's been captured. So if the mover and the seconder, Councillor Wilson, are you amenable to adding that to the list? Okay, and the seconder being Deputy Mayor, you're obviously comfortable with that. Anything else for the purposes of this motion, colleagues? Not seeing anything? Okay. So with that, we will call the question. All in favor, please? Thank you. Good. All right. With that in mind, colleagues, there is still some business to do this evening in regards to heritage plaque and the Creek subdivision. Are you good to carry on at this stage? Are we good to continue? Okay. Okay, so we'll go to the heritage plaque. Mr. Mosher, you've been exceedingly patient, so thank you. We welcome your report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I don't have a formal presentation tonight, but this report rises from staff, and it's the first time I've actually authored one under the Parks and Rec and Culture umbrella, so that was interesting. But the important part about this report is that it arises because there was a significant resolution that's come from the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee, I think it was in July of this year, requesting that there be $10,000 in municipal funds allocated to a heritage budget. Very brief history. Some time ago, there had been money allocated to a heritage fund as a budgetary line item year after year. I'm not entirely certain of when that discontinued, but it's no longer the case. The reason for why this money would be requested by I'm not going to do it full justice, but the attachment is in the report. The reason for the ask is to maintain North Grenville's existing heritage attributes, namely plaques. This would also assist with tourism efforts. It would meet provincial and local policy direction regarding heritage, and it would help to promote North Grenville's natural and built heritage as is identified in the strategic plan. Staff proposes that this be considered for the 2025 budget, and if considered, it could be discussed of how or from which operational line item it would come out of in the 2025 budget. But that's the formal report. I'm happy to answer any questions if there's some.
Great, thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Director Mosher. Question, this $10,000, will it become part of the annual ongoing operational budget? And if that's the case, is it coming from which department? From planning, or does it come from Parks, Rec, and Culture? Or is it being drawn from the Heritage Reserve Fund?
To Your Worship, so the ask is that it be annually. $10,000 annually is in a heritage line item. The whether it's Parks, Rec, Culture, or the planning department, would be determined, and certainly could be determined through the budget deliberation process. I think that answers the questions.
Deputy Mayor, you're satisfied? Ms. Dunlop?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would say that as a 10,000 annual operating rolling item, it would not be part of the Heritage Reserve. It would, the Heritage Reserve would continue to be a line item as well, independently.
Is that to your satisfaction, Deputy Mayor? Okay. 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 Good. Just wanted to make sure. I know you've been attached to this file and paid close attention. So with that in mind, we will then go to the recommendation. If there were no other questions from council colleagues, not seeing any. We have some remaining residents in the theater. Nothing from residents? Okay. So the motion on the table is that council consider the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee's request to have an annual budget of $10,000 be allocated specifically for heritage projects such as plaques and other initiatives. That council consider the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee's request to have an annual budget of $10,000 to be allocated specifically for heritage projects such as plaques and other initiatives. Okay. So with that in mind, Deputy Mayor, I presume you'd like to move that. A seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. And are you confident $10,000 is sufficient? Because I believe there hasn't been a deployment of that $10,000 for some time.
I think it'll do fine. And if not, we'll come back to council.
Okay, excellent. Anything else anyone wants to add on this one? Not seeing anything? Okay, I'm going, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wilson moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All in favor, please? Great, thank you. That does carry. I'm really sorry, Mr. Mosher. We could have put that at the front end, so you could have gotten home a little earlier. So thank you for your patience. Yes, so moving next, I did pull the part lot control in part because I was just curious to understand why the extension is required. Maybe Ms. Martin, you could help me with that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we typically put an expiry date on part lot control bylaws so that they're not forever open-ended. Part lot control, when it is lifted, does allow for the further subdivision of blocks within a plan of subdivision. So typically we've been doing 1-year expiry dates because typically that's usually what many developers need, but what we're finding is that just through their own legal processes and registration and selling of lots, they're needing much longer lengths of time to complete this. So the bylaw does have an expiry date, which is March of next year. So we do try to get these requests through as early as we can so they can be registered with the Land Registry Office.
Excellent. And so with the extension of part lot control, I am to assume that they continue to build in the Creek subdivision, that the development of that subdivision is still underway. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Worship. There are still lots that are being developed. However, I would anticipate within the next year that the Creek subdivision will be fully built out. My last drive through of that subdivision, I think almost every lot was either completed or under construction.
Great, thank you. And of course, this gives rise to another question, which I flagged earlier, and I believe Ms. Dunlop, just while we're talking about the Creek subdivision, I was interested in learning about progress made on a small tot lot where there could be a play structure and some very modest park facilities, given how many families are in that subdivision.
Thank you, Your Worship. So although the developer has satisfied their parkland requirement, there was a discussion between myself and Urbandale in regards to some consideration of some funds towards the creation and completion of a tot lot. I will reach out to Parks and Recreation and get an update. Also, I will reach out to Urbandale to move that forward so that we make sure that before assumption that we have that agreement executed and underway. But as I said, it's above and beyond their responsibilities under the Planning Act.
And certainly with that being in mind, we could jointly undertake that initiative to ensure some public gathering space in that particular subdivision, correct?
Your Worship, there is some public gathering space because there was a lot that is part of a pathway system leading from the creek down to the creek, the actual waterway. But this tot lot would be just slightly off that pathway within the stormwater management pond feature, the green space surrounding it. So although it will be fairly passive in nature, very small in nature, it will still be a gathering place and a recreational space for toddler, younger children.
And I believe we were speaking about a small play structure in particular, or some picnic tables, et cetera, that sort of thing.
The play structure was the main topic of a conversation. It is within the influence area of the floodplain, so we would like to limit the amount of structures. I believe there are some park benches at other locations, but not necessarily adjacent to the tot lot. It is something that the municipality, once we assume the subdivision, can consider in the future.
But Assumption is, as I understand it, like 5 years down the road, is it not? Assumption takes many, many years subsequent to the completion of a subdivision. I'm concerned about your timeline.
Certainly, the tot lot can be created prior to Assumption, but if we're going to add municipal features, typically it's afterwards. The speed with which Assumption happens for a specific development is often developer driven. In other words, a motivated developer can get Assumption the second year of actual construction. Typically, it's not that fast. It usually takes 3 to 5, but the Tempo subdivision across the road was exceptionally fast. It was within 3 years. They had plans, they built, they put down the asphalt, all the infrastructure was engineered and certified. We had to wait a winter. They put down the second lift of asphalt. We wait a winter, then assumption can happen as soon as engineering certification. But then we have developers that take 20 years to finish a subdivision. So there is quite a big variant. I think that we would see Urbandale to be completed within probably the next 18 months in regards to development. We would still be required to have the second lift of asphalt in the outer loop, I believe, or there's still second lift, and there's 12 months after that asphalt goes down is assumption date. So let me get a better picture from Urbandale. Yes, there was a commitment in regards to some contribution towards a tot lot above and beyond their parkland commitment, and I can give a more fulsome and absolute response to council.
Excellent, and thank you. I will recognize Councillor Sullivan's hand, but I guess I would just like to offer that this is a very small quality of life feature for many of the young families in that subdivision. So my hope would be that we could proceed prior to assumption if it's legally tenable to do so. I understand it's not necessarily the practice, but given how well developed that subdivision already is, and if it's nearing completion in terms of the actual homes themselves, notwithstanding other infrastructure, I think we would be most grateful to see the tot lot developed with its very modest play structure before assumption. But I apologize, Councillor Sullivan. I'm happy to recognize your hand.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Through you to, I guess it would be either Director Martin or Ms. Dunlop, but with respect to the Creek subdivision, and Director or CAO Dunlop mentioned this lot that is between the creek and the creek. I've seen the plans for that. It included some bat houses and some pathways through that, and different features in that. And I don't know what the status of that is now, and when will that be finished? When will that be connected to the rest to the creek? And the other thing is there's a pathway between two of the houses on the First Street, and I can't remember, Bristol, I think, that goes over, and I am understood that it was going to connect to Riverview Lane and all the way out to 43 to connect to the multi-use path on 43. So I don't know, right now it's a pathway to nowhere. So when's it going to be connected to something?
Through you, Worship. There will be no pathway directly to Riverview Lane. It will remain on the municipal lands, which we have a 66-foot road allowance that actually is the extension of Riverview to County Road 43. Yes, there was a provision for a pathway. There is a space for it. I'm not sure of the status of either the construction of that or the habitat replacement, which was the lot development you discussed with the bat houses, et cetera. What I can do when I come back in regards to the tot lot between Public Works and Planning, we can provide a fulsome response of the status of both. But we would not want to construct that 43 linkage until there's a place to go, which we all know and we all see it out there will take place within the next 24 months. Thank you.
If it's possible to receive that report before April, that would be most appreciated, if that's a realistic timeline, just to at least paint the picture for us. I know you have a budget to get through, but perhaps that could be on the second quarter list of updates. I think we would be most grateful in our interactions with residents. It would allow us to speak with some amount of confidence, because I think we're not able to do that at the present time. So thank you very much for that discussion. So with that, colleagues, we're looking to approve and enact bylaw 9324 to extend part lot control exemption for the Creek subdivision for an additional 3 years. Just looking for a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Councillor Strachan. I saw that I couldn't see Councillor Debbie Wilson anymore, and I wondered if she had disappeared into onto the floor. It's good. Councilor Dragon, yes, sometimes your person blocks Councilor. Only because the angles are off. It's the angles. Yeah. And Councilor Wilson being shorter, I miss her sometimes because the screens, angles, all of the above. All right. I just want to get out of this meeting now unscathed. Calling the question, please. All in favor. Okay. I see Councilor Wilson now. So thank you. That's good. That's good. You're still with us, Councilor Wilson. That matters. No correspondence. No other business, please. No other business. Notices of motion, colleagues. Any notices of motion? Okay. Introduction and consideration of bylaws. We truly have worn everyone out because it's now empty in the theater. So we dealt with all of our bylaws this evening. Is that right? Period for questions from members of the public and media. I do not believe they lasted as long as we did. So I'm so sorry. I'll follow up later. And then we'll go to close the meeting confirmation bylaw 9624 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on November 13th, 2024 be adopted and passed. Surely someone wants to confirm our proceedings this evening as if they weren't like abundantly clear. But could I have a mover and seconder, please? Okay, Councilor Sullivan and Barclay, if you don't mind, calling the question on confirmation as if we had any doubt. Still don't understand the function of confirmation, but someone can send me back to clerk school. Motion to adjourn at 10:13. Regular meeting of council. Thank you, Councilor Wilson. I do see you now. You should consider exchanging places. It would be helpful. No, I don't know. Why don't you like alternate so I can at least see Councilor Wilson more reliably? So 10:13, Wilson and Strachan. Calling the question, all in favor? Okay, we're good. Thank you very much.